Part 13. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 An unbelievable scene. I bet your gun is on the second floor of the Fire Stick supermarket. After answering the phone, listening to the blind tone and faint indistinct voice coming from there, Lin Fan immediately stood up, and the magnetic field control ability spread instantly. We drove up and quickly found Zhao Wanqing's location. Similarly, through the feedback of the magnetic field, he also understood the dilemma Zhao Wanqing faced. A bunch of damn stinky rats, I'm so tired of living. More than a dozen women were injured, which made Lin Fan very angry. Fortunately, the casualties were within control. As for those men who appeared out of nowhere, these people must die. Lord, what happened? Lin Fan suddenly stood up with a cold face. The evil aura emanating from his body was as real as real. Lin Yu stood up worriedly and asked. I don't have time to talk to you. I'll go out immediately. With a wave of his hand, the window on the second floor opened, and Lin Fan's figure turned into lightning, and he rushed out instantly. Lin Yu frowned slightly, and wanted to follow her, but after thinking about it, she stopped. Lin Fan was there. There is no need for her to be present, and eat a Euro trademark S not like she doesn't a Euro trademark T have other things to be busy with. How fast is Lin Fan now? Lin Fan himself doesn't a Euro trademark T know this. After the lightning control ability advanced to LV7, Lin Fan has never tried to use it. The lightning power was speeding high in the sky. He didn't know how fast it was before, but he knew it now. 1 kilometer per second, exceeding the speed of sound. Almost the whole person turned into lightning, and the scenery under his feet was blurred in an instant. It was extremely fast. The speed was such that the sound of thunder and lightning behind him could not keep up with Lin Fan's flying speed. It took only 9 seconds for the distance of 9 kilometers, and Lin Fan stood above everyone. On the ground, watching from lightning flashed across the sky, and she sensed the familiar aura above her head. Zhao Wanqing's somewhat uneasy heart instantly stabilized. With a cold light in her eyes, looking at the scum in front of her, Zhao Wanqing smiled with an indescribable coldness. Gorgeous and moving. I think I can make hundreds of them, and I guarantee that you will be in high spirits, happy and forget about Shu, and then you will die in heaven. Want to try it? I am very confident in this aspect. Zhao Wanqing's words were shocking. For a moment, Lu Zihan and others on the opposite side were all stunned. Apparently they didn't expect that Zhao Wanqing was so courageous and dared to joke with them. Hey, I would like to try. Behind Lu Zihan, a wretched man laughed strangely, shaking his crotch and making indecent movements. Before he could finish speaking, a blue electric light instantly enveloped him. Zilala. Blue electric light was flowing crazily on his body. The current was not very strong. The man did not die immediately. Instead, he collapsed on the ground and trembled non-stop, as if he had epilepsy. The blue electric light jumped, and the man kept rolling his eyes, tears streaming down his face, his mouth overflowing with saliva, and he even became incontinent. The sudden scene frightened Lu Zihan and others, and they all retreated. The man shivered on the ground for half a minute before he died completely. His whole body was extremely twisted, as if he had been condensed into irregular twists. Seeing the miserable death of his men, Lu Zihan was frightened, and the men next to him were also frightened. After the fear, all that was left in Lu Zihan's heart was anger. Looking at Zhao Wanqing more than 10 meters away, Lu Zihan didn't expect that with so many people and so many powerful thermal weapons, the other party would dare to use his methods. He didn't know what method Zhao Wanqing used, and he didn't want to know. He just wanted to vent his anger now. Break her limbs for me. Lead a Euro trademark S. See how she can use her tricks. Lu Zihan spoke angrily, and the men behind him suddenly woke up. They looked at the tragically dead brothers on the ground, and then at Zhao Wanqing who was standing not far away. They all swallowed. Luz Hekin's confidant Xiao Bing was stunned at this time. They were all arrogant and said tremblingly, "Old man, boss, did you read yesterday a Euro trademark's hot search?" Having not heard any gunshots for a long time, Luz Hekin was impatient. Suddenly he heard Xiao Bing's words and felt a little confused. "I don't a Euro trademark care what the hot searches are. I told you to shoot, didn't you hear me? Is it because I have trouble speaking? Xiao Bing is so helpless. Shooting. Are you tired of life? Didn't you fucking see the earth-shattering scene yesterday? Don't trick the brothers to death." Although he looked at Zhao Wanqing's figure and it didn't look like that he was a god of thunder, but he was not afraid of 10,000, just in case. He didn't a Euro trademark want to die yet. Raising the gun in his hand, Xiao Bing gritted his teeth, raised the muzzle of the gun and put it on Luz Hekin a Euro trademark's head. This move directly shocked Zhao Wanqing. "Are you stunned? Are you rebelling? Just because of a hot search? These are really good brothers." Not only Zhao Wanqing was stunned, but also Zhou Ziyan and a group of women. Why did the opposite party suddenly break into internal strife? Watch from the platform in the sky. Lin Fan was also dumbfounded. He had originally planned to calm down the situation and see how Zhao Wanqing would deal with these scum, but why did he start a civil war? What's the matter with the hot search? Could it be the strange phenomenon in the world caused by his promotion to level 7 yesterday? But the question is, what does it have to do with the present? There was a question mark on Lin Fan's forehead. Isn't this too funny? With the gun pointed at his head, Luz Hekin lost any anger, and a layer of cold sweat suddenly broke out on his head, and he turned his head looking at Xiao Bing next to him. He said sternly, "Xiao Bing, you're hoarse, I am not kind to you, right? What do you mean? Are you all a dead person? Get Xiao Bing for me." Luz Hekin roared angrily. Every one of his subordinates behind him dared to move. Some of them read the hot search, and some of them didn't. But with just a few words, they understood the horror of the matter. How can they still do it at this time? Talk to Luz Hekin? They are worried now, and they just hope that the other party will let them go. A rabble is a rabble. One soldier is a ragtag group, and the generals are raging. Even if they have powerful weapons, with a useless boss like Luz Hekin, his subordinates, this group of people is not much better. They bully the weak at most, and when they encounter a tough situation, they will kneel down and surrender in minutes. No one moves. No matter how stupid Luz Hekin is at this time, he knows that something is wrong, but Xiao Bing is not free at this time. Ignore him. Looking flatteringly at Zhao Wanqing, who is walking over step by step, Xiao Bing smiles and says, "Lei, Your Majesty the God of Thunder, you see, the culprit is this bitch Luz Hekin. I have captured him." We were also confused for a moment. "Do you think you should let us go?" As Xiao Bing said, he lowered his gun and aimed a big shot at Luz Hekin. Amid the miserable howl, Luz Hekin knelt down on the ground and dropped the gun in his hand. Zhao Wanqing had a look of disdain in her eyes. Concealing disgust, she raised her hand and pointed. The lightning flashed and instantly enveloped Xiao Bing. The terrifying electric current instantly turned him into charcoal. Zhao Wanqing also lost the thought of torture for such a scumbag. There were many such people. Just one look at it will make her eyes dirty. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Have a good death. Have a good death. Damn thing. 25 boys. You deserve it. What a good death. Luz Hekin, who was lying on the ground and screaming, laughed wildly when he saw Xiao Bing's miserable state, and his tone was unspeakably resentful. Zhao Wanqing pointed a finger, and Luz Hekin instantly turned into charcoal. After killing these two scum, Zhao Wanqing continued to move forward. Every time they took a step, hundreds of well-equipped people took a step back, and no one dared to shoot. Maybe they still had the last bit of luck in their hearts, but in the next second, Zhao Wangqing shattered all their luck. You all deserve to die. With a wave of his hand, a bolt of lightning pierced the air, hit the first person and splashed out, forming a chain of lightning, covering more than a dozen people around him. The tragic howling completely caused hundreds of people to collapse. Some of them collapsed. People dropped their guns and ran away, while some people raised their guns in fear and pointed them at Zhao Wangqing, shouting, "Don't come here. If you come here again, I'll rob you." The men carrying individual anti-tank rocket launchers on their shoulders were trembling all over. Looking at Zhao Wangqing, who was approaching step by step, they felt like they were facing a demon. If you come here again I will shoot you, don't a Euro trademark T force me, let us go, we will leave now. She looked at the men carrying individual anti-tank rocket launchers with disdain. If Lin Fan hadn't come before, she might have been afraid, but now that Lin Fan has arrived, she has no worries anymore. Individual anti-tank rocket launchers. Zhao Wangqing doesn't know how powerful the rocket launcher is, but it will never hurt her. This is her confidence. You fire, I'll wait for you, can you fire it first? As she said that, Zhao Wangqing pointed her finger casually, and the electric light flowed and electrocuted one of the men carrying the individual anti-tank rocket launcher into coke on the spot. The death of his companion and Zhao Wangqing's contemptuous tone stimulated the other men carrying the rocket launcher, and their blood rushed to their brains. Several people pulled the trigger irrationally, only to find that the invincible individual anti-tank rocket launcher on their shoulders was just like a decoration, and there was no movement at all. If I let you fire the cannon, wouldn't it make me look useless? In mid-air, Lin Fan said this before he stopped. Without even looking at the scum in military uniforms, he turned his head and squatted down, looking at a dozen injured women and said, "You are all good, take your hands away. I'll treat your injuries." After all, he has the ability to control plants at level 5. What Zhao Yanyan can do, Lin Fan can also do. Now that Zhao Yanyan is 10 kilometers away, or even further, this kind of thing can only be done by him. And at the same time, it can also harvest a wave of faith points. This is the first time for a dozen injured women to be so close to Lin Fan. Seeing Lin Fan at close range, the women lowered their heads in embarrassment, but they still took their hands away obediently and let him. Lin Fan easily took action. He raised his hand and used the magnetic field control ability to take out the bullet. Listening to the woman's muffled groan, Lin Fan said softly, "Be patient, you'll be fine soon." There is nothing Lin Fan can do without anesthesia. It will definitely hurt to take out the bullet. The green plant energy repaired the wound. In the shocked eyes of the women, the wound recovered as before, without even leaving a scar. "Give them to each one by one." After the women healed their injuries, Lin Fan stood up, looked at the dozen or so women who were still a little stunned, and said with a smile, "They are all healed, let's get up and jump around to see if there is any discomfort." More than a dozen women felt as if they were in a dream. The gunshot wounds they had just healed in just 10 seconds without even scars. How about it? Is there any discomfort? More than a dozen women came back to their senses and looked at Lin Fan blankly. Suddenly, one of the women covered her bulging heart and said in pain, "My lord, I feel so uncomfortable." The smile on Lin Fan's face froze instantly. What? No way. Even if he has never used plant-type powers, he can't miss it the first time he uses it, right? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Lord, my first love has just begun, and I seem to be falling out of love. Can you give me some treatment? I may need a shot to get better. Lin Fan. Looking at the fierce woman in front of him, Lin Fan swallowed. Fortunately, it's not his problem, but this female donor, you really should get an injection, a fever-reducing, injection. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 122. Chapter 122, Underground Research Institute, Horrifying Witnesses. After the injury was cured, Lin Fan was speechless when he met someone who was cheating on him in person. Even if you are very grand, you can't be so unreasonable. Even if you are very beautiful, you cannot be unreasonable, right? Can being pretty or even fierce be enough to make a mistake? Let me tell you, it really works. I remember you. After glaring at the woman who was pulled away by Zhou Ziyin, Lin Fan ignored the laughing women and turned around to look at Zhao Wanqing. Most of the people were almost dead, and the ground was full of charred corpses. Even those who escaped were not spared, but a few were left alive. Lin Fan came closer and happened to hear what Zhao Wanqing was asking. Where are you from? Where is your base? Where did your equipment come from? Whoever you say, I will spare his life. You only have one chance, it depends on which of you can seize it. Only 4 people were left alive. When they heard Zhao Wanqing's question, the 4 people who were frightened and confused rushed to answer. We came from the Underground Research Institute, which is about 300 meters to the right. The research site is underground and very hidden. Our boss said that our equipment was delivered from the military region. He said that since we have the support of the military region, no one has to be afraid. Yes, a lot of our equipment and food were provided by the military region. Oh, by the way, the military region also asked us to protect a doctor. That doctor was a pervert. He conducted experiments on living people every day and forced us to capture living people for him. We are all innocent. Please spare us, we can show you the way. Please. Lin Fan, who walked over, listened to the chaotic words of these people and captured some useful information. First, there was the Underground Research Institute 300 meters to the right, and then the equipment of these people was provided by the military region. As for which military region, no need to think about it, it must be from the Lu family of the Demon City warlord, which is the closest. The role of these people should be to protect the doctor and do some shady research, such as human experimentation, which is very taboo. Yes, no one dares to study it openly. Even if the Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City, has the idea of a euro establishing itself as king, they probably don't a euro trademark dare to conduct human experiments in the military region. These people in front of them deserve to die, including the doctor, no matter what he studies. What is the purpose? It is taboo to use living people for research. Not only Lin Fan thought this, but Zhao Wanqing was also thinking about this after hearing the news. At the same time, some of the doubts in her heart were almost solved. No wonder she came all the way here. I didn't a euro trademark even notice it. So the opponent a euro trademark S stronghold is underground. Eta euro trademark S2 hidden. Plus the distance is a bit far, so Eta euro trademark S normal that I didn't a euro trademark find it for a while. Lord, what should I do? Listening to Zhao Wanqing's inquiry, Lin Fan said without even thinking, let's go over there and meet that doctor to see just how unconscionable he is. The 4 men looked at Lin Fan and the 2 with longing expressions and asked, Sir, can you let us go? Zhao Wanqing sneered and said disdainfully, I didn't say I would let you leave alive. The 4 men were shocked and frightened, and shouted, how can you keep your words? You clearly said that as long as we answer, you will let us live. Zhao Wanqing nodded lightly, yes, I did say that, but what I said is that only one of you can live. Well, it's you who decides. As she spoke, Zhao Wanqing pointed to the man on the far right. The man pointed to looked ecstatic, knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing in thanks. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The remaining 3 people's faces were ashen. Zhao Wanqing didn't talk nonsense anymore. With a flick of her finger, the lightning flashed, and there were 3 charred corpses on the ground again. Poof! The ground rolled, and a soil thorn penetrated the man who was kowtowing in thanks. He was ecstatic. The expression on his face was frozen, and the man kept coughing up blood. He looked at the earth thorns that penetrated from his back to his front, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. She said she would let you go, but that doesn't mean I would let you go. Don't waste your limited air, you scum. As if he knew what the man was thinking, Lin Fan spoke in a cold tone. After speaking, he turned around and walked towards the research institute 300 meters away. As for leading the way, it's not necessary at all. I didn't know where the stronghold was before, but now I know where it is. Where is the need? Someone will lead the way. This kind of scum can die peacefully. Hundreds of men all died, no one was spared, they all deserved to die. Lin Fan naturally would not show mercy. The women followed Lin Fan, a distance of 300 meters. They quickly passed by, feeling the underground research institute. Lin Fan walked into the ordinary supermarket in front of him, and soon found the passage leading to the underground. Lin Fan walked in front. The underground was not dark, and even extraordinarily dark. It was bright. I don't trademark know if it was because everyone had gone out, but the underground research institute seemed deserted and empty. The target was pointed directly at the research room. Lin Fan pushed open the closed door. The metal door that required a magnetic card was nowhere to be seen in front of Lin Fan. Undefended and forced to break through the gate, before the alarm of the underground research institute could sound, Lin Fan pointed his finger and the alarm was lifted. Whether it was lightning power or magnetic field power, solving these was a small problem. The journey was smooth. Lin Fan pushed opening the innermost door, he glanced around, and soon found a busy figure. Looking at the figure of a man with his back to him, leaning on the desk, seemingly writing something, Lin Fan was not in a hurry. He went over and glanced around. There were dozens of culture tanks in the huge research room, all of which contained zombies. There were a few real zombies in them, and a few were living people who were thrown in later. Lin Fan didn't know the zombie he transformed into. Well, roar. The strange sound attracted Lin Fan's attention. He followed the sound and saw that on the two hospital beds, two figures who seemed to be living people and zombies were tightly locked with restraint belts. As for why he said this, Lin Fan could feel it. These two people are transforming into zombies, but the speed is very slow. One of them is basically a zombie, and the other one still retains human sanity. It seems that the zombie transformation is not serious. There is no doubt that these two people should have been subjected to in vivo experiments, and the initiator was the man lying on the desk writing something unknown. Having already sentenced this man to death in his heart, Lin Fan walked over, randomly picked up a folder and opened it. The first page he saw made Lin Fan's head explode. Feasibility experiment report on fusion of zombie virus and human body. Topic: the time required from infection to onset of zombie virus. When the complete zombie virus is injected into the human body, the infection time for young people, the elderly, children, and women is 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, and 7 minutes. Depending on their physical constitution, the time from infection to complete transformation fluctuates by 2 minutes. This time has gone through 100 experiments. Obtain confirmation with error within 1 minute. The keynote of the virus fusion test. After the zombie virus was diluted 3 times and tested 25 times on different experimental subjects, the human body was unable to withstand it. The experiment failed. Zombie virus diluted 5 times. The zombie virus was diluted 10 times, and the human infection rate was reduced. After 81 human tests, the virus infection process was irreversible. The longest survival time in the in vivo experiment was 3 hours and 21 minutes. The entire folder was filled with dense experimental procedures and reports, and Lin Fan was indescribably shocked and horrified. Looking at the man next to him who was still concentrating on writing information and didn't even notice that he was standing next to him, Lin Fan glanced at the folders on the messy desk. Research report on the physical characteristics of zombies. Zombie tameability experiment report. Principles of zombie action and kinetic energy supply report. Folders with various labels were everywhere. For the first time, Lin Fan felt the terror of a scientific madman. With so many folders, how many times has this man conducted in vivo experiments? Just the folder in his hand, adding up to hundreds of people. Are the truly terrifying things in the apocalypse the zombies? No. They are humans. Lin Fan once again had a new understanding of this sentence. Those leaders of powerful forces who enslave women are more powerful than the men in front of them. Just like a harmless little sheep. The man in front of him can be called completely crazy, a complete devil in human skin. And for the first time, the military behind this man made Lin Fan feel I felt a boundless sense of disgust. The reason why this man could do this was closely related to the support of the people behind him. Everything was even ordered by the military. These people. They are really crazy. They casually handed over the documents. He closed it and threw it on the table. Such a loud noise finally woke up the man who was immersed in writing something. Yang Yiping frowned. What he hated most about Luz Hekan was interrupting his train of thought while he was researching. Moreover, this time it was especially serious. How dare you just throw away his important lab report? Didn't a Euro trademark T I say that I didn't a Euro trademark T call you and wouldn't a Euro trademark T allow you to come in? Did you turn a deaf ear to what I said? Looking up to his side with a cold face, Yang Yiping was stunned. This was different from what he imagined. Looking at the cold-faced man in front of him, Yang Yiping's eyes flashed with doubts. Who are you? Yang Yiping stood up from his seat, glanced around, and was shocked to find that there were hundreds of women standing behind him, each holding a cold tang knife in their hands, their clothes stained with blood, and staring at him with unkind eyes. Who are you? How did you get here? There is no one from Luz Hekan around him, and there are so many women with bad looks intruding into the institute, and it seems that after a battle, Yang Yiping has some bad premonitions in his heart. You don't a Euro trademark T need to know who we are. I just want to know. Wouldn't a Euro trademark T your conscience hurt if we do so many human experiments and kill so many innocent people? Or do you mean that researchers like you have no conscience at all and only see experiments? Pointing to the folders that were almost piled up on his desk, Lin Fan couldn't understand the thoughts in the minds of these scientific researchers at all. Are they really all scientific lunatics? Pushing up the glasses on the bridge of his nose, Yang Yiping said calmly, conscience? Do you mean guilty? You don't understand science at all. Do you know what I'm doing? Their sacrifice is for more results, which can benefit all mankind and even save the whole world. Is it wrong to sacrifice some people to save the whole world? Science is not a child's playhouse. Where can the results come from without sacrifice? There must be gains and losses, and only by giving up can there be gains. The rules of trading are equal. I am only sacrificing a small number of people. What is wrong with this? Only through constant experimentation can we find the path to success. On this path, all sacrifices are worth it. What do you know? Do you understand zombies? You regard zombies as the source of trouble, but do you know the truth? Zombies are an evolution. Do you understand? You only see the sacrifice in front of you. If I can crack the key to zombie evolution, mankind will make an unprecedented great leap forward. Look at those zombies outside. Human flesh and blood is not the energy needed for zombie activities. The real answer is sunlight. The cells of zombies can carry out photosynthesis, maintain a high degree of activity, and provide daily activities. Even the zombie's head is not dead, but is in the animalistic stage. Just like it took hundreds of thousands of years for our ancestors to evolve from great apes to what they are today, and my experiment can speed up this process and use a small number of human lives to achieve a great leap of hundreds of thousands of years, you tell me what's wrong with me. Looking at Yang Yiping, who seemed to be in a certain state with wild eyes in front of him, Lin Fan only had one conclusion in his mind at this time. Madman. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 123. Chapter 123, Your research results will be used on you. The Yang Yiping in front of Lin Fan reminded Lin Fan of a person. That person's philosophy is to sacrifice a few people to save the majority. In name, he saves the world, but in fact, he does not care about human life. He still flaunts his so-called justice. Is it okay to disregard human life just by claiming to be saving the world? This statement is simply disgusting. Who are you? Why represent the world? Why do you represent all mankind? And this person is Emi Yakiritsugu. He is not a real person. He comes from the anime Holy Grail War. How similar are Emi Yakiritsugu Euro trademark's ideas to the man in front of him? In order to save the vast majority of people, he gave up a small number of people. However, what Emi Yakiritsugu did was that in order to save the majority of people, he would actively choose to kill the small number of people. This is the justice in Emi Yakiritsugu's heart. Doing evil things in the name of justice. What is the difference between Yang Yiping and Emi Yakiritsugu in front of me? They are all executioners, hypocrites who do evil things in the name of justice. Their disgusting justice makes people want to vomit. What do you mean for all mankind? Is it really for all mankind? Maybe it's just incidental? Even if the zombie virus is really cracked, an unprecedented evolutionary leap will indeed be completed. At that time, all mankind will be grateful to Yang Yiping, and his credit has erased his sins, but who will remember those people who were forced to die in the process? This is countless times more cruel than one general's success and 10,000 bones withered. At least those soldiers will be remembered as glorious martyrs, but those who died in Yang Yiping's hands don't even deserve their names. How can a person who has lost his humanity deserve to live in this world? What is that? Pointing to the test tube next to him, Lin Fan suddenly asked. Although Yang Yiping didn't understand what Lin Fan meant, any scientist would be willing to explain the function of his masterpiece in detail. That is a zombie virus diluted 20 times. After my research, it is supplemented with antibodies composed of multiple drugs. Although it cannot dissolve the zombie virus, it can suppress the zombie virus to a large extent. This test tube is carefully prepared by me. Come out with the fusion inhibitor. According to my guess, a 20-fold diluted zombie virus supplemented with antibodies, coupled with the human immune system, can to a large extent suppress a full outbreak of zombie viruses. In theory, antibodies can ensure that humans are conscious. Then the body is no different from a zombie, with cells that can perform photosynthesis. If this experiment succeeds, it will be a great leap in history. See that woman next to you? She is a successful work. Although it is not perfect, it is only a 15 times inhibitor, and this 20 times inhibitor can definitely complete my vision. Looking at the excited man in front of him, Lin Fan looked towards the restrainer. No wonder he felt that the woman was abnormal. She had obviously turned into a zombie, but she still hadn't turned into one. I think your idea is correct. I also agree, you are really a great scientist. Lin Fan's approval and recognition made Yang Yiping's eyes flash with excitement. As a scientific researcher, what he likes to hear most is other people's recognition of them. Lin Fan's words are the greatest praise for his research. However, he did not see the sarcasm in Lin Fan's eyes and the way he looked at the dead. It is true that Yang Yiping's research seems to have made great progress and the results are remarkable, but so what? This cannot cover up the heinous crimes he committed. He raised his hand and shot falsely, and the syringe flew away. With it in hand, Lin Fan walked step by step towards Yang Yiping, with a dangerous light in his eyes. Realizing that something was wrong, Yang Yiping's expression changed. He was about to retreat but found that his feet seemed to have taken root and he could not move a step at all. "What do you want to do?" Holding the syringe in his hand, Lin Fan looked at Yang Yiping, raised his eyebrows, and said sarcastically, "I thought you wouldn't be afraid, but it turns out you know what it means to be afraid. What I want to do is very simple. This is not your pride the work. I want to try it on you to see if this so-called inhibitor will turn you into a zombie." Yang Yiping's eyes were horrified. He looked at the syringe in Lin Fan's hand and shouted in shock, "No! You can't do this. If you do this, the Demon City warlord Lu family will not let you go." "The Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City?" Lin Fan sneered and said with disdain, "Are you using the Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City, to oppress me? Have you ever thought that the people you used for human experiments were also so scared? But have you let them go? They can use it for experiments, but you can't? Is your life nobler than theirs? How can it be the same? I am a doctor of virology, can ordinary people compare with me? I can benefit all mankind while I'm alive. Shouldn't they be honored to be able to serve as guinea pigs?" Yang Yiping's eyes were filled with bloodshot eyes, and there was unspeakable anger on his face. "ETA Euro trademark S interesting, your life is noble, but other people Euro trademark S lives are low." Lin Fan smiled, looked down at the light green syringe in his hand, and asked, "Since you think this is your proud work, you swore that 20 pieces of inhibitors can theoretically suppress the zombie virus, thereby allowing humans to achieve a great leap in evolution. Why don't a Euro trademark T you dare to try it? Dedicate yourself to science, this should be the dream of you researchers, right? Don't a Euro trademark T you have confidence in your research results? Come, for the great progress of mankind, to save the world. For all mankind. The time has come when your sacrifice is required." Zhang Li said righteous words, and put big hats on him one by one. Looking at Yang Yiping, whose eyes were dull and speechless, Lin Fan found that it was so cool to be a horse. No wonder those people always like to put big hats on them. No matter if you are right or not, put the hat on, stand on the side of justice first. If you dare to resist, you are evil, I will punish you. Grabbing Yang Yiping's arm, Lin Fan gestured, "To be honest, injection technology is he really didn't know how to do it. He could only give injections to Lin Yu and the others, but he was really scratching his head with the one he was holding in his hand." But after looking at it twice, Lin Fan felt that as long as it didn't kill anyone, ETA Euro trademark S not a big problem. I press my backhand and the needle sticks into the blood vessel. I don't a Euro trademark T know anything else, but at least I know how to stick the blood vessel. You, what are you doing? Let me go quickly. Damn it. The Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City, will not let you go. You sinner, you have ended all hope of human evolution. You are the sinner of all mankind. After being pricked by the needle, Yang Yiping finally came to his senses. Seeing the liquid disappearing in the syringe, Yang Yiping went crazy. He kept cursing Lin Fan. After injecting the inhibitor in the syringe, Lin Fan casually the syringe was thrown into the trash can. Looking at the angry Yang Yiping with bloodshot eyes, he said sarcastically, "I don't know if I am a sinner of mankind, but I know clearly that if those people killed by your experiments have souls in heaven, will definitely applaud and be extremely grateful to me. Pray, pray that your inhibitor works, otherwise you will be just like that man over there. There are two people on the restraint device, a man and a woman. The man has completely turned into a zombie, and only the woman is still sane. However, the infection process of the zombie virus is irreversible after all. It is only a matter of time before this woman becomes a zombie." At this time, Zhao Wanqing walking up, his cold eyes swept over Yang Yiping, and soon moved to Lin Fan. "Lord, what should I do with that woman? Want to kill?" The women had dispersed, and quickly came to the cultivation tank, killing the zombies inside one after another. Even the man on the restraint device who had completely turned into a zombie was not spared. However, the other women, Zhao Wanqing, did not make a decision. Even if the zombie transformation is irreversible, he is still a poor person now. Hearing Zhao Wanqing's inquiry, Lin Fan glanced at the woman lying on the restraint. He also had a headache. He walked to the restraint and looked down. He looked at a woman lying on her back. At this time, the woman's face was abnormally pale, and there were already zombie-like veins in the corners of her eyes spreading to the back of her head. This was a sign before the corpse transformed, or one of the signs of zombies. In the woman's eyes it still has the luster of a human being, and has not turned into the complete dead gray of a zombie. From this, Lin Fan can see the gratitude in the woman's heart. Taking away the towel that the woman stuffed in the cup, Lin Fan said silently, "You have something to say? Or want to do?" The woman first glanced at the dead man next to her, and said sadly, "He is my husband." Zhao Wanqing was a little embarrassed. She killed a man in front of his wife. This is really too much. Feel sorry. The woman shook her head, with a sad and happy smile on her pale face. I have to say that this woman is still very beautiful. If the Doomsday hadn't come, she would have been very happy. It doesn't matter, I don't blame you, I even thank you for ending his pain. I can feel that my time is running out, can you let me go? I want to take him, who has not yet been born, to see the world again. Lin Fan's heart moved, and he looked at the woman's belly. There was indeed a slight bulge there. Nodding silently, Lin Fan untied the restraints on the woman. He could do this. He was not afraid of the woman suddenly changing. As a zombie, no matter how sudden it is, he can guarantee that no one will be hurt. Thank you, you are a good person. The woman sat up and spoke softly. Lin Fan shook his head. Is he a good person? No, he is more like a bad person. Not many people died in his hands. There were many people or zombies. He did what he felt was right and what he wanted to do. The woman was a little weak and staggered towards the entrance of the research institute. Lin Fan followed step by step until she walked out of the research institute and returned to the ground. Under the sun, the woman seemed not so weak anymore. Seeing the woman enjoying the sunshine, Lin Fan suddenly remembered what Yang Yiping said. Retaining human reason and possessing zombie corpses may actually be successful to a certain extent, but are humans still humans at that time? Is this really an evolution rather than some kind of aberration? Sunlight, never felt so good. The woman touched her belly and walked step by step towards the barbed wire fence not far ahead. During the whole process, Lin Fan and Zhao Wanqing beside her did not speak. The sunlight gave the woman vitality, but the zombie virus seemed to be spreading faster. Lin Fan could feel it. The aura of a living person on the woman's body became less and less. Next to the barbed wire, the woman stood quietly. Suddenly she turned around, and Lin Fan discovered that the woman's eyes had turned completely dead gray. Sorry, you saved me. Before I could ask your name, could you please throw me outside? It's too quiet here. I shouldn't be the one to ruin this pure land. My name is Lin Fan. Lin Fan didn't know what to say at this time. He raised his arms and the woman slowly flew up, crossed the wire mesh, and then flew to the opposite side full of zombies. Watching the woman disappear into the group of corpses, she became one of them. Member, Lin Fan took a deep breath and his eyes turned cold. Let's go back and see our great doctor. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 124. Chapter 124. Maybe this is retribution. Well, vomit. Cough cough cough. As soon as he walked back to the underground research institute, Lin Fan heard bursts of painful retching sounds. He followed the sound, but his line of sight was blocked by a group of women. Lin Fan stepped forward, and the women stepped away in awe. Lin Fan made away. He walked to the front and saw Zhou Ziyan and others holding tang knives with wary expressions. Lin Fan subconsciously looked towards the corner, his face a little stunned for a moment. First, the experimental table was in a mess, with various test tubes. It was shattered on the ground, and you could see many empty bottles on the ground, as well as empty syringes. In the corner, Yang Yiping, wearing a white coat, looked painful and kept retching. Under the bright light, you could see Yang Yiping's face. The blood vessels bulged, his eyes were full of blood, and he was squeezing his neck with both hands. It didn't look normal anyway. Lin Fan was puzzled. He went out for a while. Why did Yang Yiping become like this? According to judging from the state of that woman, even if 20 times the inhibitor cannot suppress the zombie transformation, it is impossible to transform into a zombie so quickly, right? This is 20 times the inhibitor, and the woman can see the accurate effect with 15 times the inhibitor. It is impossible. 20 times is too much. What's going on with him? Looking at Zhou Ziyan next to him, Lin Fan asked doubtfully. Although he originally intended to let Yang Yiping experience the feeling of being a test subject, was it too sudden? When Lin Fan asked herself, Zhou Ziyan was stunned for a moment. Somewhat flattered, he quickly said, after you left, this doctor acted like crazy. He took a syringe and injected himself into himself. He didn't know what went wrong. Then he started retching and went crazy, and turned into what he is now. Look. Lin Fan was shocked after hearing this. What is this? Are you seeking medical treatment in a hurry? The human body itself has a balance. If a healthy human being suddenly injects drugs into the body, regardless of whether they are good or bad, it will destroy this balance. People who exceed certain indicators will have problems. Although he didn't know what Yang Yiping injected into himself, just looking at the more than 10 needles on the ground, Lin Fan knew that this was a rhythm that was going to kill him. Looking at the body curled up on the ground Yang Yiping, Lin Fan suddenly felt like he had seen Dr. Isaacs in Resident Evil 3. Because he was infected by zombies, and then returned to the laboratory and used the virus serum on himself more than 20 times. How similar was this scene? Even the results were almost the same. They all ruined themselves. In Yang Yiping's current state, Lin Fan gave up the idea of a euro taking action. Looking at the still intact cultivation tank over there, he waved his hand and Yang Yiping was thrown directly into it. The electronic door of the culture tank was locked, eliminating the possibility of Yang Yiping coming out. He walked to the side of the culture tank and looked at Yang Yiping inside through the glass. At this time, he no longer looked human at all, with bulging blood vessels on his face and a ferocious expression. It looked particularly scary, and the exposed arms became swollen. I really didn't trademark know what this guy had injected into himself. After knocking on the glass of the culture tank to confirm its sturdiness, Lin Fan felt relieved. These glasses, they are all specially made. Generally speaking, sniper rifle bullets cannot break through them. Now that the electronic door has been destroyed by him, he can only break through violently if he wants to open it. Lin Fan feels that with Yang Yiping's ability, it is impossible to open it. Unless Yang Yiping can mutate, if you become a licker, you won't be able to get out in this life, but things like a licker don't exist in the real world. After ensuring that Yang Yiping couldn't get out, Lin Fan had no intention of staying anymore and turned around and walked out of the research institute. Returning to the ground and bathing in the sunshine, Lin Fan took a deep breath and suddenly asked Wonking, have all the videos been recorded? ETA trademark S all recorded? Lord, do you need it now? No. Waving his hands to refuse, Lin Fan turned to look in the direction of the steel wire mesh side and flew back to the hospital. Zhao Wonking put away the USB flash drive she took out, looked at the other side of the steel wire mesh, and turned to Zhou Ziyan. The others waved and said, come on, let's go back and have a good rest. We may go outside the steel fence to kill zombies in the afternoon. Zhao Wanqing took the lead, followed by Zhou Ziyan and others. A group of hundreds of female figures rushed to the hospital quickly. Behind them, countless zombies were lying near the steel wire mesh. Behind the zombies, a slender figure carried behind them. Facing these zombies, they were moving forward aimlessly. This slender figure had a thick waist and seemed to be a little fat, but it was not serious. The zombies rushing towards him subconsciously avoided this figure when they passed by. The slender figure walked farther and farther, and finally disappeared into the vast sea of a euro corpses. It seemed that he wanted to see a wider world. Returning to the second floor of the supermarket, Lin Fan put on his slippers under Yu Yiren's service, and walked to the sofa to sit down. Next, Lin Yuyu, who was immersed in writing something, raised his head and asked, "My lord, has everything been resolved?" Recalling everything he saw in the Underground Research Institute, Lin Fan nodded with a heavy heart. Suzialuo, who was sitting next to him, saw that Lin Fan's face was not good looking. He crawled into Lin Fan's arms and asked with concern, "Brother, what happened? Something that makes you unhappy?" Lin Yuyu also noticed that Lin Fan looked wrong. She put down her pen and walked over. She grabbed Lin Fan's hand with both hands and said nothing. Lin Fan's abnormal state made the three girls of Yu Yiren look at each other, and they all felt a little worried in their hearts. Fan was the god of the hospital, and every state he was in affected everyone's hearts. Holding Suzialuo's soft body with one arm, Lin Fan told everything he had seen and heard in the institute. The faces of several women in the living room turned pale when they heard this. Suzialuo was so timid that he got into Lin Fan's arms. His little head shrunk like a little quail, and he kept mumbling in his mouth. So scary, luckily I didn't Euro trademark T get caught." Patting Suzialuo's back comfortingly, Lin Fan said softly, "Don't be too scared. This is just an exception. There are not many lunatics like Yang Yiping." "Is it really not many?" Lin Fan is not sure. The Eastern Empire has a population of more than 1 billion. Who knows what kind of scum will appear? Even if the chance is 1 in 100 million, it will be more than a dozen. That woman was indeed a bit pitiful, especially the child in her belly who was stillborn before she even had time to see the world. Lin Yuyu sighed from the side. Actually, it is not a blessing that the child is not born. In this doomsday, the baby itself is a burden, both for the baby itself and for the parents. What Lin Yuyu said makes sense. Babies cry easily, and crying will attract zombies. It's okay during the day, but it's a nightmare at night. And at this time, many people don't have enough to eat, let alone babies. If mothers don't have enough to eat, where can they go? Is there water feeding the baby? The atmosphere in the living room was a bit gloomy. Lin Fan stood up from the sofa with Suzialuo in his arms, cheered up and said, "Stop talking about these troublesome things, Luoluo, let's go build the city wall and stay at home." Weirdly boring. This was decided before dinner. Suzialuo was paralyzed at home except for playing. This is not okay. Isn't it useless to be a good legal loli? When Lin Fan said that he would go out to build a city wall, Suzialuo she suddenly became interested and no longer felt scared. Speaking of growing up, she had always drawn design drawings. She had never really seen how to build a building or a mansion, especially this kind of ancient-style city wall. Just think about it. I thought it was very interesting. After putting on his shoes and walking out of the supermarket, Lin Fan glanced at the north subconsciously, then withdrew his gaze, pulling Suzialuo straight to the South District. He didn't plan to go to the North District for the time being, so Lin Fan decided that the North District would be left. At the end, Lita Euro trademark S build the city walls in the three directions of east, west, and south first. Holding Suzialuo to the steel wire mesh in the south area, Lin Fan took out the design drawings, considered them carefully, and moved his palm upward, causing the ground to shake. a black and gray earth wall with strange lines slowly rose up. The earth element energy in the body surged out from the palm of the hand, and the earth wall in front of him rose rapidly, and did not stop until it reached a height of 15 meters. The 15-meter high earth wall was about 15 meters long. 20 meters and 12 meters wide are not Lin Fan's current limits, but in his opinion, 15 meters high and 12 meters wide are enough for the time being. It is not impossible to do higher and wider, as that would consume too much earth element energy. Even though the ground he stepped on was filled with a steady stream of earth element energy, Lin Fan felt that it was somewhat difficult to make ends meet. The current scale could be sustained for a while, but it would be a bit wasteful to expand the scale. Next to Lin Fan, Su Xiaoluo stared blankly at the tall city wall rising from the ground in front of her. Her little face was blank, and her big eyes were full of question marks. This was different from what she thought. With just a casual move, the city wall came out. This, ETA Euro trademark is too simple. In fact, how did she know how much energy Lin Fan would consume to build such a tall city wall? Without the replenishment of the earth, the 15-meter high, 20-meter long, and 12-meter wide city wall cannot reach 300 meters. Lin Fan would have run out of energy. If his superpower hadn't been promoted to level 6, the distance would have been shortened twice. Pulling the dazed Su Xiaoluo to more than 20 meters away, Lin Fan still copied the gourd painting. Soon, the 15-meter high and 12-meter wide city wall appeared in front of him again. As Lin Fan kept walking, the length of the city wall became longer and longer. From a distance, the 15-meter high black and gray city wall gave off a heavy feeling of oppression. Lin Fan stopped walking until he was 300 meters away. At this moment, Su Xiaoluo was already dumbfounded. At a glance, he saw the tall city wall with an inexplicable sense of shock and oppression. Standing under the corner, a kind of the feeling of insignificance arises spontaneously. Why did it stop? After coming back to his senses, Su Xiaoluo looked at Lin Fan blankly. His confused look was very cute. He pinched Su Xiaoluo's nose and Lin Fan smiled and said, "Just stop when you are tired. I am not forever." Motivation. Actually, Lin Fan is not tired, but the earth element energy has been exhausted. Even if he steps on the earth and has a steady stream of replenishment, he cannot keep up with such a rapid consumption. Looking at the 300 meters long and 15 meters high thick city wall, a sense of accomplishment arises spontaneously. This city wall. But he built it with his own hands. Apart from anything else, ordinary cannons cannot leave any big holes in the city wall. A 15-meter high city wall, unless it's the Air Force or anti-aircraft guns, otherwise the ground forces will basically be useless. However, the city wall in front of us is not complete yet. It is just a model. Things like wall stacks and watchtowers need to be built on it, and the inner city needs to be added. Installing the steps on the passage city wall was a hassle. After resting for a while, the earth element energy in the body had almost recovered. Lin Fan and Su Xiaoluo continued to build the city wall. Lin Fan felt that he would probably have to build the city wall in the next few days. He became a construction worker. As Lin Fan walked around, telling some jokes to Su Xiaoluo from time to time, and listening to the crisp laughter and Su Xiaoluo singing from time to time, Lin Fan felt that it was not so boring. The southern district, the city wall is not like a steel wire mesh. The height of 15 meters is enough to see from a distance. The survivors further away are not all blind. Soon someone discovered the city wall that suddenly appeared here. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Da. Chapter 125. Chapter 125 The Doomsday. Jiaming supermarket in the eyes of the rich second-generation young people. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a group of well-dressed young men and women were sweeping through the supermarket. From time to time, they picked up things on the shelves and threw them around, laughing and cursing, without any trace. Post-apocalyptic fear. At the supermarket checkout counter, Wang Xiaoming was sitting on it with a relaxed expression, chewing gum in his mouth, and his legs seemed to be swaying to the rhythm. Next to the counter, there was a bloody machete, and on Wang Xiaoming's waist, there was a bulging pistol. The Doomsday zombie crisis breaks out, and all the police in Magic City are dispatched to suppress the riots. Looking at the current situation in Magic City, it is known that the suppression has failed. Not to mention the police in Magic City. When the zombie crisis broke out, with the population of Magic City reaching more than 20 million, even if more than 300,000 troops from the military zone near the seaport in the suburbs came in, the result would be annihilation. There are more than 70,000 security personnel in Magic City, and more than 70,000 people are scattered throughout Magic City. As long as your luck is not too bad, you can still pick up 1 or 2 guns with good luck. However, the pistol on Wang Xiaoming's waist was not picked up. Of course, he is not a policeman. His pistol was purchased from special channels. Before the end of the world, he could only play with it at home, but now he can bring it out directly. Stab, stab, woohoo, brother Xiaoming, are you feeling well there soon? I'm taking the zombies around in a circle and they're almost back, 5 minutes at the latest. There was not only a machete on the counter, but also a walkie-talkie. Wang Xiaoming's pupils focused, he picked up the walkie-talkie next to him and said lazily, "Okay, I understand, let's go out right away." After he finished speaking, Wang Xiaoming jumped down from the counter and put the walkie-talkie in his clothes. As for why his cell phone can still be used in the end, he still has to use the walkie-talkie. There is no other reason. Hobby. Although the young men and women in the supermarket were joking around, but they all paid attention to Wang Xiaoming intentionally or unintentionally. When they saw Wang Xiaoming jumping down from the counter, a group of well-dressed young men and women stopped one after another. "Brother Xiaoming, is it time to go?" Wang Xiaoming nodded slightly, looking at the group of younger brothers and sisters, with a smile on his face. "Xiao Hao said he is coming, 5 minutes at the latest, let's wait for him at the entrance of the supermarket." Hearing what Wang Xiaoming said, a group of young men and women nodded one after another, picked up their full backpacks, and followed Wang Xiaoming to the entrance of the supermarket. There were not many zombies on the street, but more corpses crushed by cars, everywhere on the ground. It was all smelly and dirty blood, and it seemed that it had been cleaned up a long time ago. After smelling the breath of living people, the few zombies on the street rushed toward the supermarket entrance. The laziness in Wang Xiaoming's eyes in front of the crowd disappeared, and his eyes instantly became sharp. Took the initiative to greet him, struck sharply and decisively, swung the machete in his hand, and the heads of the zombies were chopped off. Zombies that seemed extremely ferocious to ordinary people turned out to be like living targets in front of Wang Xiaoming. From Wang Xiaoming's judging from his movements, he must have been trained. His skills are strong and agile. The violent zombies are like babies that have just learned to run in front of him. They can't even touch the corners of his clothes. Watching Wang Xiaoming show off his power, a group of young men and women they were shouting and cheering next to them, with fanatical looks on their faces. "Brother Xiaoming is so handsome. Woohoo! Double kill. Brother Xiaoming is so fierce. Brother Xiaoming, 4 more zombies are coming from the right, kill them. Kill them." The brightly dressed men and women looked excitedly and kept cheering. The terrifying zombies did not frighten these young men and women. On the contrary, the scene of blood flying made them more excited. Rumble. Rumble came from the corner of the street. A group of young people looked over. In front of the road, a modified Dongfen warrior looked like a hedgehog. In front of the car and on both sides of the wheels, there were sharp steel thorns and guillotines everywhere. The Dongfen warrior was roaring at full power, and the body was covered with the blood of zombies, and it roared all the way towards the supermarket. After the Dongfeng warriors drove 1,000 meters, a large group of zombies emerged from the corner behind, roaring and running towards them, as if they were chasing the bloody warriors. Smells like shark. Squeak. Amidst the harsh breaking sound, Dongfeng warrior stopped at the door of the supermarket. The door opened, and a tall young man wearing a leather jacket jumped out. The young man's face was full of vitality, and his eyes were on a group of young men and women. He swept over his body and finally settled on Wang Xiaoming in front of him. Brother Xiaoming, stop cutting, eat a Euro trademark. It's almost time for us to leave. Hearing the call from behind, Wang Xiaoming retreated after finishing off a few zombies in front of him. Shaking off the blood on his body, Wang Xiaoming looked at the tall young man wearing a leather jacket and said with a smile, Xiao Hao, how does this newly modified Dongfeng warrior drive like this? Lu Zihao scratched his head, laughed, and looked indescribably excited. He gave a thumbs up and said nothing else to say, powerful power, sufficient horsepower, in a word, cool. Patting Lu Zihao's shoulder, Wang Xiaoming said with a smile, as long as it feels good, okay, get in the car, it's time for us to leave. There is something even more exciting waiting for you tonight. Hearing the word more exciting, Lu Zihao's eyes flashed with excitement, he nodded and returned to the main driver's seat. Wang Xiaoming was about to get in the car, but found a group of younger brothers and sisters staring blankly at the Dongfeng warrior. In the direction they were coming from, his eyes couldn't help but be confused. Based on Wang Xiaoming's understanding of them, it was impossible for them to be scared to death because of a group of zombies. Wang Xiaoming, who didn't quite understand, looked along their line of sight towards the end of the street, his eyes also dull. Live. A few kilometers away, a black-gray city wall stands at the end of the street like a shadow in the thick fog. Even though it is several kilometers away, the dark wall still has an inexplicable sense of shock. That is what? Human vision has its limits. In fact, you can only see a blurry shadow of something a few kilometers away, and you can't see what it is at all. On the main driver's side, Lu Zihao was about to drive, but he found Wang Xiaoming and others outside the car. Everyone was looking behind them blankly. Lu Zihao looked confused and subconsciously looked in the rear-view mirror. He didn't find anything at first. After taking a closer look, he discovered the problem. After rubbing his eyes, Lu Zihao noticed the black shadow in the view mirror was still there, and I couldn't help but poke my head out of the car window and look behind me. Damn it! What it is? When did it appear? Lu Zihao's loud voice woke up Wang Xiaoming and others. After regaining consciousness and looking at the group of corpses getting closer and closer, Wang Xiaoming said decisively, everyone, get in the car. There were several other cars parked in front of the supermarket. With doubts and shock in their eyes, the young men and women got into the car one after another. In the passenger seat, Wang Xiaoming picked up the binoculars and sat on the back seat. Lu Zihao stepped on the accelerator, like the hedgehog-like Dongfeng warrior roared again and rushed forward. The roof sunroof opened, and Wang Xiaoming leaned out, holding a telescope in his hand and looking behind him. Through the telescope, Wang Xiaoming saw a clear scene several kilometers behind him. Between the high-rise buildings, a black-gray city wall seemed to have come from ancient times. It stretched across the streets. A thick and vast sense of oppression came to his face. Wang Xiaoming was shocked when he saw it. With such a mood, Wang Xiaoming I was speechless for a long time until Dongfeng warrior drove all the way to Zhongyuan Villa District. Zhongyuan Villa District is a high-end wealthy area in Shanghai. The housing prices here are ridiculously high. The standard of more than 100,000 yuan per square meter is simply not affordable for ordinary people. Those who live here are either rich or noble. As soon as he got off the car, Wang Xiaoming heard chattering and excited voices. Brother Xiaoming, have you seen it? Oh my God, since when has there been a wall there? Why haven't we discovered such a high city wall before? Wu Menfei was in high spirits, with excitement and incredulity in her eyes. She was dressed in shorts and hot pants, with her exposed navel and white chin looking young and hot. Yes, yes, brother Xiaoming, that city wall is at least 10 meters high, right? Looks so cool too. And it is more majestic than the walls of those ancient cities. When did our magic city have such a majestic city wall? I think it was established by some force over there, right? Could it be the army? Military helicopters have been flying there in the past few days. Could it really be a refuge in the military zone? However, the city wall was built too quickly, right? It feels like it was built overnight. Is the wall built so fast now? What kind of black technology is this? A group of young men and women talked to each other, their faces filled with excitement and curiosity. For these young people, the end of the world is not a disaster, it just adds more exciting elements to their boring lives. Now life is much more interesting than before the apocalypse. Can they drive recklessly on the streets before the apocalypse? Traffic jams are annoying to death, but ETA Euro trademark is different now. Not only can they race on the streets, they can even kick the moment you hit the pedestrians on the road with the accelerator and watch the bodies fly away. It's such an exciting feeling. That wall wasn't put up last night, or even before we went to the supermarket. Unlike Wu Menfei and others, Wang Xiaoming was more calm after the shock. He carefully recalled the previous scene. Although he did not pay much attention to the situation at the end of the street, he was sure that when he went out today, the situation at the end of the street there is no such wall, otherwise he would not be able to see such an obvious shadow outline. Ah! Impossible. Brother Xiaoming, please don't a Euro trademark T scare me. Why does it sound like a ghost story? In the crowd, the petite and cute Lu Minjiao shrank her head in fear, her two big watery eyes were like a frightened deer. Wu Menfei and others also had excited expressions on their faces, looking at Wang Xiaoming in disbelief. They were all confused. It only took 2 or 3 hours for them to go to Jiaming supermarket and back. What Wang Xiaoming meant was that within these 2 or 3 hours, a city wall more than 10 meters high was erected out of thin air a few kilometers away. Isn't this a joke? I can also confirm that brother Xiaoming is right. I didn't a Euro trademark T see that city wall in front of me before I went there, absolutely not. At this time, Lu Zihao, who had parked his car, walked over with a shocked tone. He was obviously very concerned about the sudden appearance of the city. If Wang Xiaoming was the only one who said this, Wu Menfei and others were still doubtful, but so did Lu Zihao. Said, they had to believe it. Brother Xiaoming, do you have any ideas? Wang Xiaoming glanced at Lu Zihao, with a flash of light in his eyes. Lu Zihao understood, and a sense of excitement boiled in his blood. Xiao Hao, come with me, our equipment can be used. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 126. Chapter 126 Wingsuit Flying, Wang Xiaoming got Euro trademark S determination. Under the city wall, after more than 4 hours, Lin Fan finally completed the construction of the 20-kilometer city wall in the southern district. Standing at the southeastern junction, Lin Fan looked west along the city wall, which was 15 meters high. The city wall is very oppressive. Just looking at it gives you a feeling of being indestructible and unbreakable. How is it? Okay. Turning to look at Suzialuo beside him, Lin Fan snapped his fingers, his face full of pride. This was his masterpiece all afternoon. He was so exhausted that he didn't even know how many times he had rested. Suzialuo passed by after the initial shock, her mood has calmed down a lot now, but despite this, Suzialuo still feels like she can't recover when looking at the tall city wall that is 20 kilometers long in front of her. This is really what she saw with her own eyes, is the city wall born from scratch. Shaking his head absently, Suzyalogo said with shock, "It's amazing. So cool. If I hadn't a Euro trademark T seen it with my own eyes, I would never have imagined it would be so fast and so shocking. Brother, you are great too, right?" A wave of rainbow farts made Linfan feel even more comfortable. He bent down and picked up Suzyalogo. Linfan kissed her twice on her face and laughed just so, Logo's design. It's also very good, and the singing is also very nice, otherwise I would be bored to death this afternoon. It's getting late. Let's go home and do the remaining 3 walls tomorrow. In one afternoon, the relationship between Linfan and Suzyalogo soared rapidly. On the way back, Linfan didn't use his powers. He just held Suzyalogo, who was as soft and cute as cotton, and walked back slowly. Eat a Euro trademark S still early, so there a Euro trademark S no need to be in a hurry. I usually don't a Euro trademark T have time to spend time with Suzyalogo, the legal and cute Lolita. Now I can take a walk to pass the time. Not long after Linfan and Suzyalogo disappeared from the street, 2 small black dots flew in the sky. They were Wang Xiaoming and Lu Zihao, who had gone through all kinds of hardships to get here. They were wearing wingsuits, swinging their arms to control the direction and speed of flight, and their eyes were he was staring at the scene on the ground, with an indescribable shock on his face. "Brother Xiaoming, isn't this too scary? The city wall is at least over 12 meters by visual inspection, and its width is definitely more than 10 meters, enough for 3 cars to race side by side. And there aren't even any living zombies here." Wang Xiaoming looked at the scene on the ground and was equally shocked. He saw the city wall just now. It was very real and had a strong sense of oppression. Zombies can't break through such a tall city wall in their lifetime. There is also no living person inside the city wall. Zombies, the ground was full of dead zombie corpses. It was so clean. If it hadn't been cleaned up by the military area, he couldn't imagine how powerful the force was to clear out such a large safe area and create such horror. A wall. Flying high in the sky, Wang Xiaoming also saw the steel wire mesh erected on the edge, which was 3 meters high, keeping all the zombies out. It can be seen that the other party deliberately created a safe place. What's strange to him is that after flying 6 or 7 kilometers, why didn't he see anyone? Where have all the people gone? There can't be anyone alive in such a large area, right? Wang Xiaoming wants to move on. Fei, at this time, Lu Zihao suddenly said, "Brother Xiaoming, we should go back. At this height, if we don't go back, we may end up in this area or outside the city wall. We don't have any tools. It's too dangerous, got it?" After hearing Lu Zihao's words, Wang Xiaoming woke up. Although he was very reluctant, he really should fly back now, otherwise he would not be able to fly back to the Zhongyuan villa area. Moreover, at this time, it will be dark soon, and there will be zombies at night. He was simply not on the same level as he was during the day. He was indeed very capable of fighting, but he didn't a Euro trademark T want to run into zombies at night. That was no different from dying. Forced to return, Wang Xiaoming glanced at the city area unwillingly, turned around and flew, returning to the Zhongyuan villa area. After retracting their limbs at a height of more than 20 meters, they lost the power brought by the eardrums and quickly fell to the ground. At the same time, the parachute bag on their backs opened. The falling 2 people were 3 meters above the ground. There was a sudden pause when he was about 3 meters, and the speed of his fall suddenly stopped. After landing safely, Lu Zihao patted his pounding heart and said with a pale face, "It's so dangerous. If we have another party, we will probably fall to the ground and die." Wang Xiaoming was also a little frightened. Wingsuit flying is really exciting. The feeling of free flying is very good, but the safety is so poor. I don't know how many people die every year when wingsuit flying. When his mood returned to calm, Wang Xiaoming packed up his parachute bag, walked into the villa in silence. Several young men and women who came up wanted to say something, but seeing that Wang Xiaoming was not in a high mood, they all looked at each other with doubts. Lu Zihao followed closely and walked in. Several young people hurriedly they gathered around and asked, "Brother Hao, what's wrong with Brother Xiaoming? What do you see when you are in a low mood?" "Yes, Brother Xiao Hao, what did you see?" Brother Xiaoming seemed unhappy. Lu Zihao took off his wingsuit, and while taking it off, he told what he had seen before. The young men and women who heard it were surprised and found it incredible. Real or fake? The city wall is more than 10 meters high, more than 10 meters wide and 7 or 8 kilometers long. What is this? They are almost catching up with the city walls of the ancient capital. Couldn't that be fake? Just an empty shell to scare people? I think it should be, otherwise how could a city wall of at least 7 or 8 kilometers, more than 10 meters wide and more than 10 meters high, be built in a few hours? Yes, it would be possible if it were a god. Otherwise, even if it were built with various machines, it would be impossible to build such a magnificent city wall in a few hours. Listening to everyone's heated discussion, Lu Zihao shook his head and didn't know what to say. In a room on the third floor, Wang Xiaoming was sitting on the sofa, his mind filled with the scene he had seen before. The magnificent the city walls and the empty and ghostly clean inner city were all firmly imprinted in his mind. Compared with the inner city, the Zhongyuan villa area he had worked so hard to clean up was no different from a torii gate. He was still complacent about this before, but now he is sober and has a bigger goal. Build a city wall by yourself? That is a no-brainer. People like them can't build such a city wall in 10 years. Since if you can't build it yourself, then find a way to make it his own. Of course, this is just his temporary idea. Wang Xiaoming is not stupid. He can build such a city wall out of the blue. The other party is by no means an ordinary person, even if he is not. The military region is definitely a huge force, and he must act cautiously. If force fails, he can slowly try to encroach on it, but before that, he must figure out the inner city. What kind of power is there? With the decision made in his heart, Wang Xiaoming's eyes flashed with excitement. He now wanted to go out again to find out some useful information, but when he looked at the sky outside, this idea was extinguished in an instant. It was almost 7 o'clock. Although it was summer and the day and night were very late, 7 o'clock was not enough time for him to go there again. To calm down the excitement in his heart, Wang Xiaoming took off his equipment and put it away. Okay, turn around and go downstairs. In the living room downstairs, more than a dozen young men and women looked at Wang Xiaoming, who came down, with a look of exploration and worry in their eyes. Wang Xiaoming knew without thinking that it must be the expressions on his face when he came back that made these people feel worried. After thinking about something, he waved his hand and reassured with a smile on his face, "I'm fine. Is the meal ready?" After dinner, Lita Euro trademark S start our carnival tonight. When they heard the word carnival, the young men and women in the living room became excited, obviously looking forward to the night's carnival. As night fell, the zombies at night changed from being lazy during the day to becoming violent, chasing the scent of living people everywhere. The roar was extremely terrifying. In the Zhongyuan villa area, Wang Xiaoming was wearing a tight-fitting clothes, with a pistol on his waist, holding the daytime gun in his hand, with a serious look on his face. Next to him, the young people in the villa all looked nervous and fanatical. They were also fully equipped and seemed to be waiting for something. In front of a group of people, there was a huge iron cage. The iron cage was filled with zombies. Because of the darkness, these zombies were particularly violent. Through the gaps in the iron cage, he roared crazily at Wang Xiaoming and others. Holding a remote control in his hand, Wang Xiaoming raised his arm and noticed Wang Xiaoming's movements. The breathing of a dozen young people was stagnant and they looked even more nervous. "Are you all ready?" The rule of today's game is to see who among us kills the most zombies. Does anyone want to quit at this time? Zombies at night are different from those during the day, and more ferocious. After Wang Xiaoming finished speaking, more than a dozen young people remained silent, and no one took the initiative to stand up. At this time, isn't standing up the same as taking the initiative to show cowardice? Is it acceptable in terms of face? Seeing that no one spoke, Wang Xiaoming's eyes became solemn. Now that everything is ready, let's start the game. Be careful and don't die, otherwise the knife in my hand will not recognize anyone. After that, Wang Xiaoming pressed the remote control in his hand. More than 10 meters away, the door of the iron cage opened, and a group of zombies roared out and rushed straight towards Wang Xiaoming and others. On the roof of the villa, Wu Menfei and others stood on the rooftop and watched. In the scene downstairs, everyone had excited expressions, and their faces turned pale due to excessive excitement. On the ground, Wang Xiaoming looked at the zombies rushing over. The machete in his hand was merciless, hitting the zombies' heads every time he swung it. Extremely brave, the blood of the zombies was flying, Wang Xiaoming's eyes were red, and he was going crazy, as if he vented all his previous excitement on these zombies. I don't know when, all the zombies in the iron cage were killed, it was all gone. Wang Xiaoming gasped for air. Zombie corpses were lying around him. These were his achievements. He shook off the bloody machete in his hand. Wang Xiaoming's thoughts became more and more determined. No matter what, he must take that safe zone as your own. No matter what method you use. That is a real man's toy. A mere Zhongyuan villa area is like a ridiculous birdcage. What kind of overlord is he? Only a city wall of that level, only worthy of him. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 127. Chapter 127. You are in charge, you have the final say. On the second floor of the supermarket, Lin Fan didn't know that someone was already keeping an eye on his inner city, but even if he knew, he wouldn't take it to heart. Is Wang Xiaoming just an ordinary person? So what if he is good at it? Not to mention anything else, the first generation female warriors could beat the shit out of him with just one hand and one kick. This was an absolute crushing force. Even the second generation female warriors, namely Wang Ziwen, could not fight in a single fight. It can beat him until he can't take care of himself. As for the last 3 generations of female warriors like Zhou Ziyan, others don't know. Jasmine will definitely beat him every minute. Lin Fan doesn't dare to guarantee the other female warriors. As for the methods Wang Xiaoming had in mind, such as forbearance and gaining faith points, they were of no use to him. In Lin Fan's eyes, there was only one kind of man, and that was a dead man. No matter what reason you have, whether it is loyalty or something else, as long as you dare to show your face, Lin Fan will definitely kill you without saying a word. There is no need to speak. His power does not need a man, he alone is enough. Don't talk about the issue of offspring or not. He can live forever in the future, and so can Lin Yu and the others. As for the other maids, he can't and won't care about this. Why do he need offspring? Will women die? No kidding, don't a Euro trademark T. You know what in vitro fertilization is? Is cloning possible? As for whether other maids would die of drought without a man, Lin Fan didn't want to care about this issue. He could not use them, but he would never allow other men to use them. There is always a price to pay for a comfortable life. Don't talk about the issue of being overbearing or not. If you have any opinions, you can talk to the zombies outside and see if the zombies will care whether you die of drought. It will bite you to death for lunch, Theta Euro trademark S for sure. Don't say that the entire force is just a man. Sorry, same sex repels, and you don't like men when you see them. If I have the strength, I can do whatever I want. Lin Fan can't control others, but here, These are his rules. At 8 o'clock in the evening, most of the women were in the living room. Suzyologo was sitting in Lin Fan's arms. From a distance, they looked like father and daughter. Lee was reported for hanging up today, and she was still GG in the promotion match. Lin Fan immediately made the decision, "Wild Dad will take you to the King of Glory." Lin Yuyu and Zhao Wanqing were planning something on the other side, but Lin Fan didn't care. Not surprisingly, the management system and the new hierarchy were still a bit difficult. A complete ecosystem cannot be formed by just a few words. The framework alone requires a lot of brain power. It is always difficult to start from scratch. This is still standing on the shoulders of giants. Something that can be learned from. Lin Fan had a headache just thinking about this thing. He could just be a mascot. Wouldn't it be nice to play games with a little loli in his arms? Why waste your brain and embarrass yourself? With Lin Fan's current reaction ability, no professional player could keep up with his speed. After killing randomly in the jungle, he led Suzyologo to victory. Looking at the extra stars after success, Suzyologo happily kissed Lin Fan on the face and started the second ranking. This situation lasted until almost 11 o'clock in the evening, when Lin Yuyu walked over tiredly, accompanied by the three girls Zhao Yanyan who were looking forward to it. Just as a ranked game was over, Lin Fan took the water glass handed over by Li Yun, took a sip of water, turned around and hugged Lin Yuyu into his arms. Finished. Leaning on Lin Fan's shoulder, Lin Yuyu closed her eyes and nodded. Her head was getting bigger just for the sake of a frame. Well, there are still some things missing. It will probably take a few days to get the complete framework. And the most important thing is the currency issue. We are not good at this thing. After all, except for counterfeiters, no one is good at this. Currency requires strict anti-counterfeiting and a customized layout. You cannot just take a piece of paper and write a number on it and use it as currency. This is our most troublesome problem. Listening to Lin Yuyu talking about this, Lin Fan thought about it for a while. This thing is simple. If you have any problems, just contact the system. I believe the system can solve it. System, do you have any solutions regarding currency? Sir, depending on your situation, there are currently two ways to solve it. The first is to spend points to exchange for currency. You can customize the currency style yourself. The second is to customize the currency style and then purchase a banknote printing machine produced by the system. System products cannot be copied. Sure enough, it is right to look for the system when you have difficulties. After thinking about these two methods, Lin Fan asked how many points are needed for the first method. First, you can spend 100 points to purchase 10,000 coins produced by the system. You can choose the currency amount yourself. 100 points and 10,000 coins seems not expensive. What about the second type? In the second method, you spend 1,000 points to buy a banknote printing machine, and the system can give you 100,000 blank banknotes as a gift. You can print different amounts of currency according to your needs. You can buy 10,000 blank banknotes for 10 points in the system mall. After hearing these two methods, Lin Fan thought about it. The first one is simple but will cost more points. The second one is once and for all, but requires points to buy specific blank banknotes. In the short term, the first one is definitely it is very cost effective, but in the long run, the second option saves more points. Lin Fan chose the second option without giving much thought to it, but he has not redeemed it for the time being. After all, the corresponding system has not been released yet. Lita Euro trademark S wait until Lin Yuyu is ready. With a plan in mind, Lin Fan lowered his head and kissed her on the forehead, looking at the fatigue in Lin Yuyu Euro trademark S eyes, and said softly, "You don't a Euro trademark T need to think about currency, I will can be solved." Is that so? Well, Lin Yuyu hesitated for a moment and chose to believe Lin Fan unconditionally. Sitting upright with her arms propped up, Lin Yuya pulled Zhao Yanyan and the other three people next to her with expectant faces. The sofa was not that big, so Li Saiqi and Mu Yuking simply didn't care. Knelt down beside Lin Fan obediently, and had long been used to it anyway. Looking at this posture, Lin Fan knew that Lin Yuya must have something to say. Seeing Lin Fan's confused look, Lin Yuya patted the back of Zhao Yanyan's hand and said, "My lord, Yanyan and the others have been sleeping on the floor for so long. What I mean is, should we let them sleep with us?" The eyes of Zhao Yanyan, Li Saiqi, and Mu Yuking showed expectant looks. They were very tired when they went to bed at night and had to go back to the bed. In fact, they wanted to cuddle up next to Lin Fan. It would make them feel at ease. After scratching his head, Lin Fan looked at Lin Yuya doubtfully and asked, "Isn't it your decision? The palace empress can make the decision. What should I do? Didn't you always let them sleep on the floor?" Lin Yuya almost choked and had a myocardial infarction. She felt a little bad all over. She glanced at Lin Fan resentfully. "You still have the final say in this family. How could I dare to make random arrangements without asking you? Okay, 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 you can arrange this from now on, no need to ask me again." Although the blame was thrown out, Lin Yuya's resentful look was really lethal, and Lin Fan couldn't bear it. Hearing Lin Fan's words, joy flashed in the eyes of Zhao Yanyan and the three people around them. They finally got through it. Almost like them are Li Yun and three others who have been waiting beside them. Zhao Yanyan and the others have taken the position, so can they take their turn to lay the floor? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Lin Yuya expectantly. Sure enough, Lin Yuya's eyes swept over under the expectant gazes of the three people. Li Yun, Yu Yiren, and Zhang Kaiyu stood upright like soldiers waiting for review. "There cannot be anyone on the floor. You have been quite obedient during this period and have done well. Come over and lay the floor tonight. Do you have any objections?" Li Yun and the other three shook their heads quickly, joking. They finally expected it, so how could they have objections? "Mistress, no, we are all very willing." Lin Yu nodded and said calmly, "Since you all have no objections, let's arrange it this way. The tasks of the three of you remain unchanged. The only thing more is to serve the master in the morning to dress and wash. Do you understand?" "Understand." Withdrawing her gaze, Lin Yuya glanced at Suzialuo, who was still leaning on Lin Fan's arms like a little salted fish, and asked, "Aren't you still up? Or do you plan to go back to the house with us to sleep?" Suzialuo, who was still paralyzed, suddenly became energetic. He looked at Lin Fan with a squinted face, then he got up, covered his face and ran back to the room. "I want a Euro trademark Tigo, otherwise I will be bullied." Suzialuo's slippers flew off when she was running, and her two little white silk feet were pedaling so fast. Lin Fan didn't expect Suzialuo to agree. Although the little loli was old enough, she still had the courage. He was still young and had a conservative personality. Although he could get what he wanted now, Lin Fan still didn't go. It was better to let nature take its course. Lin Fan hugged Lin Yuyu and returned to the master bedroom. Soon, Li Yun and the other three also lowered their heads. They walked in and slept on the floor obediently. However, the noise in the room meant that the three of them could not sleep so early, especially when they were still in their 30s and 40s. It was not until late at night that Li Yun and the other three fell asleep on the floor. They are going through the same path that Zhao Yanyan and the others have walked, but the difference is that it is more difficult for them. It is quiet at night, but some places are not quiet. In the military area near the seaport on the outskirts of Shanghai, in the evening, Ye Feng has returned to the military area. It was just that the high-level officials were in a meeting at that time, and he waited outside until the high-level meeting was over before he was called into the conference room. Most of the generals from the military region were there, and Ye Feng relayed everything Lin Fan told him. Almost nothing was left out. After Ye Feng finished speaking, Lu Tongyu immediately got up with a bad temper and slapped the table. Furious. Eat a Euro trademark S simply too rampant. You don't take us seriously. Sure enough, the villain becomes rampant when he succeeds. He dares to point fingers at the military region and the country, he deserves it. The atmosphere in the whole conference room was solemn. On the main seat, Lu Yuanbin's face was calm, and he could not see any emotion or anger, but there was a solemn light in his eyes. Dad. I suggest sending fighter jets over immediately to educate this kid and let him know what awe is. Isn't it just that you can control a Wuzzy? Is it okay to cross him 100 times? My fighter jet is several thousand meters in the air. Can he touch it? Lu Tongyu's roar echoed in the conference hall, and his eyes were filled with angry light. Nonsense. Sit down. Lu Yuanbin glared at his second son. Lu Tongyu was obviously a little scared and sat back in his seat angrily. Lu Jingyu seemed much calmer in comparison, and the city was deeper. Dad, what do you think? Lu Yuanbin shook his head and sighed. Since ancient times, there have been countless things that chivalrous people have done to break the law with force. It was not until the era of hot weapons that they became less common. If someone has this strength, he will naturally have the ability to be arrogant. Besides, this is a courtesy first, then a soldier. You can kill him, but when he is sent back, he tells us that he does not want to cause trouble and does not want to go against our military region. If we don't give him face, we will fight each other next time. He is a very interesting young man. You are very smart, Tongyu, but you are still too impulsive. Speaking of this, Lu Yuanbin glared at his second son, and Lu Tongyu was so angry that he didn't know what to say. But, young people are still young people. No matter how much they think, their knowledge is narrow. They don't a Euro trademark T know the terror of thermal weapons. Just like Tongyu said, can he control 1 or 100? If such a person disobeys discipline in the last days, big trouble will happen sooner or later. Therefore, I decided to dispatch the army immediately to the Magic City area. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Doomsday. Chapter 128. Chapter 128, Dispatch Troops and Generals, the mastermind behind the scenes. Lu Yuanbin is the king of the Lu family, the warlord of the Demon City. His words were absolute orders. Although the Lion King was old, he was still very powerful. No one dared to disobey the orders of Lu Yuanbin, the commander-in-chief of the military region. What's more, those present were all direct descendants of Lu Yuanbin, and they had long been dissatisfied with Lin Fan's words. Standing nearby, although Ye Feng had long expected that things would turn out like this, now that he heard it with his own ears, his heart was still a little cold. The military region has really, as that man said, deteriorated. I just don't a Euro trademark T know how many people will die this time. No one paid attention to the silence of a mere major. In the conference hall, Lu Yuanbin looked majestic and shouted Lu Jingyu. Lu Jingyu, who was sitting first on the left, immediately stood up and saluted, "Here we come. In the name of the commander-in-chief of the Lu family of the Demon City Warlord, I appointed you as the commander of the First Army. You will lead 3 reorganized divisions and set off for the Demon City area 2 days later to eliminate zombies and capture the lawless element Lin Fan. Is there any problem?" Lu Jingyu's eyes were shocked and he shouted, "Report to the general, I have no problem." Wu Qiuzhong. The second person on the left, Wu Qiuzhong, who was also old, stood up immediately. "Arrive. Please give instructions from the commander-in-chief." Looking at his old friend, Lu Yuanbin's eyes moved slightly. "I appoint you as the deputy commander of the first group army to assist you. Is there any problem?" Wu Qiuzhong immediately said, "Return to the commander-in-chief, no problem." At this point, Lu Yuanbin's eyes slowed down a little, glanced at Lu Jingyu, and said softly, "Old man, Jingyu is still young, you have to help him more." The seriousness on Wu Hong's face softened, and he replied with a smile, "It can be said that Jingyu grew up under the old man's watch." "Don't worry, old man." Lu Yuanbin was relieved and turned to look at Lu Tongyu on his right, who looked a little depressed. His eyes softened a little. Unlike the old man who beat his second son Lu Tongyu was too impatient. To put it bluntly, he was impulsive and stubborn. This was his most important thing. Uneasy. "Lu Tongyu." With a stir, Lu Tongyu instantly stood up and saluted. "Arrive. I have appointed you as the commander-in-chief of the 2nd Group Army. You will lead 3 reorganized divisions to move from the side and provide support at any time. No accidents are allowed. Do you have any questions?" Lu Tongyu shook his head quickly. "Report to the commander-in-chief, there is no problem." Lu Yuanbin nodded, and immediately appointed a few more as deputy commanders and general staff officers. After the combat deployment was completed, Lu Yuanbin slapped the table and stood up, shouting, "This battle must be won, not defeated, and we must win beautifully, do you understand?" More than a dozen people in the conference hall stood up instantly and shouted in unison, "Understood." "The meeting is over." The people in the conference hall filed out, and Ye Feng walked at the back in despair. What he least expected to happen happened, and for some reason, he felt very tired. The army had deteriorated, and he had always understood that the people he was loyal to, what he wanted was the country. He could deceive himself before, but now that the food curtain has been untied, what should he do? Late at night, the Lu family of the warlord in the demon city was not peaceful. In a certain room, Lu Jingyu sat with a calm expression. Sitting on the office chair, "I don't a Euro trademark T know what I a Euro trademark am thinking about." "Adjutant." "General, what are your instructions?" the adjutant waiting next to him asked quickly. "I called a few secret guards in Magic City to inquire about the situation. I remember that there is a research institute that is relatively close to the Second Key Hospital. Let them explore the truth and inquire about Dr. Yang's research results." The adjutant was obviously Lu Jingyu's confidant. He didn't hesitate after hearing this and immediately dialed the phone number at the research institute. In the dark research institute, the sound of the phone kept echoing. In a certain culture tank, a man whose body was swollen and almost inhuman shape Dr. Yang hit the culture tank crazily, and blood covered the entire glass. Despite this, he was still not dead. The adjutant frowned and called several times, but without exception, no one answered. Lu Jingyu frowned. Asked what's going on. The adjutant was shocked. He looked at the interface where the phone automatically hung up. He shook his head and said, "General, I don't know. No one has answered the call over there. Even if I changed several other numbers, the same thing happened. Could something have happened?" A few strange lights flashed in Lu Jingyu's eyes. At this time, he was not sure. He wanted to use force to get over it, but these are extraordinary times and he was not allowed to mess around. At this point, Lu Jingyu could only shake his head. "Don't worry about it. Wait for the army to leave in 2 days, and then send Wu Ji over to see what happened. It's getting late. Adjutant, please go back and rest first." "Yes, General, you have something to do." Boom. A gunshot interrupted the adjutant's voice. Lu Jingyu looked out the window and frowned. What's going on? The adjutant didn't know what happened and ran out quickly. The guards outside obviously heard the gunshot and looked at in a certain direction. He seemed very confused. "What happened?" The adjutant ran out and asked the guard outside the door. The guard shook his head and said he didn't know. The adjutant watched the soldiers running in a certain direction and quickly followed them. When he saw the cause of the gunshot, the adjutant was stunned for a moment, with a look of disbelief on his face. In the room, Lu Jingyu was stunned when he heard what the adjutant said. He quickly picked up the coat next to him and walked out. Something big happened. He walked quickly to Yefeng's residence and saw looking at Yefeng who committed suicide on his desk. Lu Jingyu's face was full of disbelief. Not long after, Lu Yuanbin and other generals rushed over. Looking at Yefeng who died on his desk, Lu Yuanbin's eyes widened and he walked up step by step. In front of him, he picked up a piece of paper on the desk, glanced at it, and quickly raised his head. His figure instantly became much older. Yefeng was the last group of soldiers he brought out, and he was also the most promising one. Now at the age of 30, as long as you work steadily, becoming a general will not be a problem at all in the future. But because of issues of faith, he chose to commit suicide. Lu Yuanbin put the paper in his hand away, took a deep breath, turned around and walked out of the room. Let's all disperse, collect Major Yes' body, and bury it properly. Lu Yuanbin originally wanted to pursue the title of martyr and various meritorious deeds, but in the end he did not do so. Perhaps this was an insult to Yefeng. But he has taken the wrong road and cannot go back. Many generals it was quickly dispersed, but this matter remained like a mystery in everyone's mind. Under the dark night, the zombies were manic and ferocious, running on the streets as if they were never tired. In the urban area of a Euro the Magic City, a thin line of the figure moved straight forward under the blowing of the night wind. The woman's face was pale and her eyes were ashen. She was a complete zombie. The woman seemed to be walking aimlessly, her gray eyes looking at the tall buildings around her. The end was coming. The original neon lights of the Magic City were much less, but they were still gorgeous. The running zombies subconsciously avoided the woman. No matter how many zombies there were, no zombies knocked her down. The woman seemed to be a little fatter, and her lower abdomen was bulging. As if she was pregnant with a child, 3 or 4 months old, and occasionally through her clothes, she could see something moving. Under the light of the neon lights, the woman's eyes reflected colorful lights, and under the night, the woman seemed to be strolling further and further away, disappearing into the vast sea of a Euro corpses. Before dawn in the morning, Yu Yiren and the 3 of them climbed up from the floor, opened the door softly, walked to the living room, and then started talking one after another. Yawned. They went to bed late last night and woke up early. The 3 of them would have been troubled if they were anti-sleepy. However, the 3 of them didn't complain at all. Instead, they were very excited. They finally made the floor in the master bedroom. If they were sleepy, they would be happy. Be sleepy. Although they don't expect to be able to reach the position of Zhao Yanyan and the 3 of them, they must at least be in the inner circle. The 3 women were busy in the kitchen in a hurry. They got up so early to make breakfast. Normally, Lin Fan, the master, they will be out at about 8 o'clock in the morning. Of course, they will wake up earlier, but it will take more than half an hour to get dressed and wash up. This is the rule they have mastered in the past few days, and the 3 girls have always kept it firmly in mind. The 3 women started cooking together and quickly prepared a few dishes and a soup. After the 3 women finished their work, they kept the prepared meals warm and then hurriedly cleaned themselves up to remove the slight smell of oil smoke. Then he carefully returned to the master bedroom, took off his clothes and got back under the quilt. After a short nap, even before the 3 girls, who were still a little sleepy, fell asleep, Lin Fan opened his eyes. His attributes were far beyond ordinary people. Lin Fan was very energetic. Even after sleeping for only 4 or 5 hours, Lin Fan would be unable to fall asleep. He lowered his head and found Zhao Wanqing sleeping in his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her plump little cheek. Then pushed away the pile of makeup and walked to the ground. Hearing the movement, the 3 girls Li Yun quickly sat up, and the iron chains on their collars made a crisp sound. The silver iron chains complemented the skin, and the 3 girls were dressing for the first time. Lin Fan seemed a little confused and took the chain handed over by Li Yun. Lin Fan was a little confused for a moment. Well, why are you still carrying this? Li Yun, who was kneeling on the ground, raised her head and said softly, "We think the silver sparkle looks very good on this kind of decoration, and this choker is also very fashionable for it." Looking at Li Yun, Lin Fan didn't know what to say for a moment. Well, there is indeed a kind of decoration between a collar and a necklace called a choker, which was popular in the 1990s. Compared to the extremely talented Zhao Yanyan, Li Yun was lacking in clothes, so much so that Lin Fan was a little late walking out of the master bedroom. Today's task is still to build the city wall, but today it is a little more detailed than yesterday. The east and west districts have to build city gates specially. Otherwise, the 15-meter-high city wall will block all the female warriors outside the city, which would be too much. Embarrassed, Yu Yi and Zhang Kaiyu ran to the kitchen to serve the dishes. After a while, the dining table was filled with food. "Lord, are you going to call the mistress and the others?" Li Yun, who had just come back from gargling in the bathroom, stood beside him and asked. Before Lin Fan could say anything, Zhao Yanyan and the others walked out with their hands on their waists and yawned. Seeing the women's posture, Lin Fan touched them. He touched his nose and asked, "Why don't you sleep more? It's still early." Zhao Yanyan put down her little hand and came close to Lin Fan for a kiss. Although the corners of her eyes were tired, her face was radiant, as beautiful as a well-hydrated flower. "We are all leading the team outside the city now. We must get up early, otherwise the female warriors would have been waiting outside." Lin Fan suddenly realized that now, unlike before, he had to clean up zombies 10 kilometers away. Zhao Yanyan and the others were going to lead the team. "Thank you for your hard work." "Sit down." Patting Zhao Yanyan's jade hand, Lin Fan got up from his seat and went straight to Suziolo's room. "Today we have to build a city wall. How can we do it without Suziolo?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 129. Chapter 129. Sorry, having superpowers is awesome. Under the wall of the southern district, Suziolo stared at Lin Fan with a bulging face and big eyes. There was a sleepy look on his face. Obviously he was very dissatisfied with being pulled out of bed so early in the morning and not being able to sleep in. Lin Fan pretended not to see it, holding the blueprint in his hand and studying it non-stop. Not only the east and west districts, but also the south district wall that was built yesterday must now have a gate leading to the outside, otherwise the female warriors would not be able to get out today. The team in the southern district was led by Muyuking. At this time, Muyuking was hundreds of meters away, directing hundreds of female soldiers to pile up the corpses of zombies. The fire of the demon cat is very terrifying. Even if it is only level 3 now, as long as the tyrannical flame sticks to it even a little bit, the zombies will be burned to ashes. It's not very comfortable to use to destroy corpses and eliminate traces. Moreover, what Lin Fan expected happened. As Muyuking advanced to level 3, Muyuking already had 3 tails behind him. However, compared with the 9-tailed fox, the tails that looked like cats were not so nice looking. Luckily those tails can be retracted. There are 2 ways to advance Muyuking's demon cat ability to level 3. One is to specifically strengthen the demon cat's fire, and the other is to develop in multiple aspects. Muyuking was not so greedy and chose the first path, specializing in the demon cat fire. The demon fire was extremely terrifying. In fact, the main reason was that the other 2 abilities were relatively poor, so he chose to specialize. I don't a Euro trademark T know if he ran out of luck. Lin Fana Euro trademark S2 branching abilities are also quite different. His choice is to temporarily specialize in fairy fire. Hundreds of female warriors carried the corpses of zombies and walked quickly. Soon hundreds of zombies piled up into a small mountain. Fire flashed in Muyuking's eyes. The mountain of corpses in front of her caught fire without wind. Soon the blue flames completely destroyed the pile of corpses. When ignited, the corpses of hundreds of zombies turned into fly ash at a speed visible to the naked eye. In fact, this ability is very good. There are too many zombie corpses in the inner city with a radius of 20 kilometers. It would be too troublesome to transport them out bit by bit. Muyuking's ability solves this problem very well. There are maids piling up corpses in every direction in the city. As long as Muyuking is free or Lin Fan passes by, they can just drop them and burn them clean in an instant. Once there are no corpses on the streets and the abandoned vehicles are cleared away, the entire inner city will instantly take on a new look. On the edge of the city wall, Lin Fan selected an area in the center as the city gate. The city gate is 8 meters high and 12 meters deep. However, how to build this city gate is a problem. In theory, an alloy giant door can be used. Alloy is simple. The magnetic field can decompose metals into atomic states, and then arrange the atomic metals to form a strong alloy. But another problem is how to make this door open and close automatically. Those in research institutes, for example, all have electronic identification, but Lin Fan doesn't understand this thing. If you ask him to crack it, he will know it. There is no electronic door that cannot be opened by using lightning powers. The alloy door was temporarily given up, but Lin Fan came up with a new idea. Since the alloy door can't work, then the earth door, can do it, right? It's like a city gate like the broken dragon stone. He is good at this kind of thing. He just needs to get something similar to an identification card, inject his earth element energy into it, and then swipe the card to enter. How simple is this? And you don't a Euro trademark T even need an identification card. When the time comes, a mark will be left on the woman a Euro trademark S arm. If you need to use your own energy to activate the mark, the city gate can open by itself if it senses it. This one is easier. What a genius I am. When he had an idea, he implemented it. Lin Fan pressed his palm on the city wall. Soon the solid wall shook a few times. Then, with Lin Fan as the center, the city wall spread out in an arch shape to both sides. Under the control of the earth element energy, soon a giant corridor with a height of 8 meters and a width of 8 meters appeared on the solid wall, leading directly to the steel wire mesh more than 10 meters away. Pulling up Suzialuo, who was still a little reluctant, Lin Fan strode towards the end of the city gate. Arriving at next to the steel wire mesh, Lin Fan raised his hand. The steel wire mesh in front of him was instantly decomposed. It was troublesome to build a 20-kilometer-long steel mesh, but it was indeed very simple to disassemble. Soon, large pieces of alloy steel plates appeared on the ground. These alloy steel plates may be used in the future, so keep them for now in case of emergencies. Standing outside the city wall, looking at the zombies on the street in front of him who seemed to smell the smell of living people, Lin Fan had no intention of paying attention to them. The magnetic field power spreading, covering his and Lin Yuyu's breath. Unable to sense the breath of living people, the restless zombies calmed down. Turning around and looking at the city wall in front of them, Lin Fan pressed his palms on the wall, and the earth element energy exploded and spread. The earthen walls on both sides emerged as if going back in time, and then completely sealed the city wall, turning it into a solid block, with no gaps to be found. Suzialuo was confused now. Fortunately, you made a corridor to connect the city to the outside world. Why is the door sealed now? What are you trying to do? You can't open the door yourself every time you go in, right? At this moment, Suzialuo looked at Lin Fan, his eyes were extremely weird. He was not angry. He hit her on the head and looked at her painful and aggrieved look. Lin Fan explained the principle again. Suzialuo was dumbfounded. Are you too good at playing? Ita Euro trademark S amazing to have superpowers. Shrugging, Lin Fan showed a standard arrogant expression, pointed at Suzuiluo, and vividly said, "Sorry, having superpowers is great. Have you seen the other 3 directions? I want to do this too." Suzuiluo rolled his eyes, looking like a defeated dog. After finishing the city gate, Lin Fan took Suzuiluo back to the city. Muyuking had burned all the zombie corpses nearby. At this time, welcomed. "My lord, have you done it?" Lin Fan didn't answer. He took Muyu's pure and tender palm, and the earth energy circulated, leaving a mark of the word Lin on the back of her hand. This mark did not last long and soon disappeared into the skin. Down. "This is..." Letting go of Muyuking's little hand, Lin Fan explained, "This is a pass. To enter and exit the city gate, you only need to activate the mark with energy, and then press your palm on the city wall. When the mark is sensed, the city gate will open automatically." Muyuking's eyes lit up, the demonic fire energy activated, and sure enough, the word Lin appeared again. "Thank you, Lord. Okay, take your people out. Outside the city is no better than inside. Be careful about everything. If there is any problem, call me as soon as possible." Watching Muyuking and his party disappear before his eyes, Lin Fan took Suzuiluo and went straight to the junction of the southeast district and began to build the city wall boringly. Zhongyuan Villa district was very excited all night. Wang Xiaoming got up early in the morning and pulled Lu Zihao ran out before he woke up. Wang Xiaoming was already a little confused. The tall city wall and the huge safe zone were all tempting him. Desire blinded his reason. Maybe he was awake and had a plan. But never thought that things would turn out as he planned. Lu Zihao was pulled by Wang Xiaoming to climb the stairs early in the morning. Lu Zihao fainted and quickly broke away from Wang Xiaoming's hand. "Brother Xiaoming, even if we want to go, we have to eat enough, right? In our current state, are we going to climb the stairs hungry? We'll collapse before we reach the top of the building. Let alone flying in wingsuits, we might as well just plunge down and fall to death." Wang Xiaoming only realized it at this time. The two of them finished their meal in a hurry. Before the people in the villa got up, they came to Guangding building from a hidden road. They had already explored the vicinity of Zhongyuan Villa area more than once. Yesterday they jumped from the rooftop of Guangding building. Unfortunately, the height was limited, less than 400 meters, otherwise they could fly farther. It was more than 2 hours after they climbed to the top of the building with difficulty and stopped. If the Guangding building had not encountered a zombie outbreak not long after it was built, and there were not many people inside, it would have taken an unknown amount of time to kill the 2 zombies. I rested on the rooftop for half an hour and recovered some of my strength. Wang Xiaoming stood on the rooftop and opened his arms in the strong wind. The strong wind blew the wing membranes and the fin-shaped airbags were filled with air. At this time, Wang Xiaoming jumped down. His arms and legs opened wide, and his whole body stretched. Wang Xiaoming looked at the city wall in the distance with excitement, and tried to control the direction to fly over. Wang Xiaoming and Lu Zihao flew towards the city wall one after another. To be honest, there are very few people in China who dare to fly in low-altitude wingsuits. After all, it is an ultra-extreme sport, very dangerous. The mortality rate remains high. But it is this that proves how determined and crazy Wang Xiaoming is. The figures of the 2 people walked through the high-rise buildings. On the street, Muyuking, who had just burned a few zombies with demonic fire, felt something flash out of the corner of his eyes. He turned his head to look at the gaps between the tall buildings in confusion, but found nothing. Jasmine stopped immediately. He stepped down and followed Muyuking's gaze. All he saw was the sky. "Mistress, what's wrong?" Muyuking shook his head and suppressed the doubts in his heart. He swept his eyes across the street and looked at the large pieces of broken corpses on the ground. He said in a deep voice, "Be careful. There may be people in this area. Pay attention and don't." Got beaten coldly. What happened to Zhao Wanqing? Lin Fan said. Mu Yuqing didn't want to encounter her accidentally, so be careful. Her demon fire is not complete, not to mention that the development level is still relatively low. According to Lin Fan, her development level is only level 3, while Zhao Wanqing has already reached level 6. The difference is like a chasm. Zhao Wanqing at level 6 can be ambushed by carelessness, so she needs to be more careful as she is at level 3. At this time, Wang Xiaoming and Lu Zihao were flying in the sky. They didn't Euro trademark T know that they had just escaped a fatal disaster. Looking at the city wall getting closer and closer, the expressions on their faces became more and more excited. Closer. Closer. Until they flew over the city wall, Wang Xiaoming looked excitedly towards the inner city, hoping to make some new discoveries. The moment he crossed the city wall, the expression on his face froze instantly. There are indeed new discoveries. However, this new discovery is a bit too scary. Small, brother Xiaoming, then, why is there another city wall erected on the east side? Lu Zihao's voice was trembling. It was not excitement, but fear. Just one night later, the same wall appeared again in the east. Isn't this a joke? Are you really playing a tower defense game? Completed with one click? Wang Xiaoming was stunned. Looking at the vast city wall that stretched to the end of his sight, he was so confused. So much so that he almost forgot to control the direction and fell head first. But fortunately, he woke up and took control. Today's as a result, except for the discovery of the new city wall, Wang Xiaoming and the two still found nothing new. They did not even see a human figure. However, the flight height was restricted there. There was no other way. Wang Xiaoming could only bite the bullet and return. After landing safely again, the more Wang Xiaoming thought about it, the more unwilling he became, so much so that his eyes turned red. He was going a little crazy. Xiao Hao, will you follow me? Let's do something big. Doomsday, I am the only one in the world who has superpowers. Author, Gugu Da. Chapter 130. Chapter 130, Mu Yuqing is here, don't a Euro trademark T go anywhere. If you win, you will be a young model in the club, but if you lose, you will work in the fields. Before the end of the world, Wang Xiaoming was tired of his ordinary life. He had endless money in his hands, racing cars, singing karaoke songs, and playing with women. These were all things he had played out of date. The rich second generation also had troubles. Born with a golden key in their mouths, they will also have troubles if they don't a Euro trademark T have to worry about food and flowers. Wang Xiaoming hates the ordinary life in normal society, and the arrival of the Doomsday has given him new excitement. Zombies, what an interesting and challenging opponent. The fighting skills he learned in the past came in handy. Every time he had a life and death fight with zombies, the feeling of dancing on the tip of the knife made his ordinary nerves excited. He liked this feeling of adrenaline rush, but after a long time, these zombies no longer had it. What a challenge! He was a little tired of the same thing going back and forth. These zombies did not evolve like in movies and novels. He found it very boring and unchallenged. Until those two posts on the internet appeared and allowed him to see in human beings. World. He longed for it, but it was of no use at all. The kind of strong man who came and went didn't even bother to show up. His excitement that had just risen cooled down again, and he was unwilling to do anything, but he had no choice. Until yesterday, Wang Xiaoming discovered a new world. The tall and majestic city wall brings incredible visual shock. It is vast, majestic, and indestructible. Wang Xiaoming's first thoughts rose when he saw it. It was a vast and peaceful safe zone without a zombie, which made his heart uncontrollable. It started to vibrate. A tall city wall, a vast safe zone, what does this mean? He cannot achieve the state of an inhuman strong man, but he can pursue power, which is also a challenge. Seeing the twinkling light in Wang Xiaoming's eyes, Lu Zihao smiled bitterly. He knew that this usually lazy brother was excited. Based on his understanding of Wang Xiaoming, he would not give up until he achieved his goal. "Brother Xiaoming, you have said so, can I not help you?" Wang Xiaoming felt pleased and patted Lu Zihao on the shoulder. "Good brother. Come on, lead a Euro trademark S, take out the hot air balloon that was idle before. I still don't a Euro trademark T, believe it? Nothing can be found this time. The things that the rich second generation can play are beyond your imagination." Hot air balloons are something that Wang Xiaoming and his friends occasionally played with before, but now they have been left in the warehouse to eat dust. The most luxurious villa number 1 in the Zhongyuan Villa district belongs to Wang Xiaoming. In their stronghold, the gym on the 3rd floor, 2 girls wore white slim-fitting fencing uniforms, with protective gear on their heads, and attacked each other with rapiers in their hands. You advance and I retreat, I advance and you retreat, and the rapiers in their hands are in mid-air. Colliding back and forth, the elegant figure advanced and retreated on the ring, which was quite beautiful. Beside the ring, a group of girls gathered around, admiring the competition between the 2 women, clapping and applauding from time to time. Farther away, a group of young people with some while resting, some were playing billiards and a series of competitive sports. Just as everyone was immersed in it, the door of the gym opened and Wang Xiaoming and Lu Zihao walked in. The 2 people who came in suddenly attracted everyone's attention. Even the 2 girls who were fencing stopped. They took off the protective gear on their heads, and their long hair was flying. Wu Menfei was panting, and there were fine beads of sweat on her forehead. The other girl also took off her headgear. Coming down, Lu Minjiao's petite and lovely face was revealed, and her cute big eyes were full of innocence, which was particularly touching. With her arms on the ropes at the edge of the ring, Wu Menfei looked at Wang Xiaoming and others gathered in the distance and asked, "What are they doing? Mysterious." Lu Minjiao walked to the side, leaned softly on the rope, shook her head and said, "I don't know. I heard that brother Xiaoming and brother Xiaohao went out this morning and took away their wingsuit flying equipment. Look at them. The clothes you were wearing must have gone to the city wall again, right?" Went again. Wu Menfei was a little surprised. She knew the dangers of wingsuit flying. In her opinion, doing so was no different from seeking death. "Look, they are leaving. What are they going for?" Wu Menfei quickly looked up. Indeed, a group of young people followed Wang Xiaoming excitedly and walked towards the door of the gym. Wu Menfei thought for a moment, dropped the hood in his hand, stretched out the rope and jumped off the ring. Go ahead and see what they want to do. Even if Wu Menfei didn't say so, the girls present also thought so. Wang Xiaoming still has a high prestige in this group. Many girls present like Wang Xiaoming, who is bold, careful, and capable. It's a pity that Wang Xiaoming, after passing the age where he likes to play with women, he treats these girls without any pretense. As soon as he walked out of the gym, Wu Menfei saw Wang Xiaoming and others pulling a deflated hot air balloon out of the door. Wu Menfei also played with the hot air balloon. Looking at this posture, are Wang Xiaoming and the others planning to get a hot air balloon? Outside the villa, when Wu Menfei and the others came out, Wang Xiaoming and others were filling fuel and preparing to ignite, and the deflated umbrella-shaped hot air balloon was also propped up under the urging of the blower. The hot air balloon was also it is dangerous. Although Wang Xiaoming is impulsive, he has not lost his mind. The reason why he seeks these young people is to help. Whether taking off or landing, the work of hot air balloons is very cumbersome. Seeking excitement does not mean risking one's life. Wang Xiaoming carefully checked there were a series of things that needed attention, such as the integrity of the hot air balloon and the fuel bottles around the basket. After all inspections were completed, Wang Xiaoming looked at the height instrument panel. Everything was normal. All he had to do was untie the ropes fixed on both sides and ignite the combustion. The device supplies thermal power, and the hot air balloon can take off. Brother Xiaoming, what are you doing? Wu Menfei came up with a group of sisters and looked at Wang Xiaoming curiously. Turning back and looking at Wu Menfei and others, Wang Xiaoming smiled slightly. His handsome appearance made the eyes of many girls who were fond of Keek light up. Fei, just wait for me to come back at home. This time I went out with Xiaohao to take a look at the city wall a few kilometers away and the safe zone inside. You don't a Euro trademark T no, Xiaohao and I went there this morning, and there was another one erected on the east side. A majestic city wall with no end inside has been built. This is simply shocking. Build another city wall, Wu Menfei was stunned, and the little sisters on the side were also shocked that they had grown up. Wang Xiaoming nodded excitedly and said excitedly, the flying distance of the wingsuit is too short, and I can't see anything useful at all, so I plan to use the hot air balloon as a springboard. If I look deeper, I may find something amazing. I even want to make contact with the forces inside. We have almost grown up together. Looking at the expression on Wang Xiaoming's face, Wu Menfei knew that this was not the only thing he was thinking about. Wu Menfei was not stupid, and indeed he did not point out anything. Instead, he warned Brother Xiaoming, the sudden appearance of the city wall, I wonder if you have thought of anything? Wang Xiaoming was stunned for a moment, looked at Wu Menfei in confusion, and asked, what do you think of? Do you remember the posts on hot searches? I feel that the city wall was probably made by that type of person, so I don't a Euro trademark T recommend that you go there. After all, you don't a Euro trademark T know the other part a Euro trademark S attitude. If you go there rashly, it may be dangerous. The two videos on the hot search have been deliberately forgotten by Wang Xiaoming. He couldn't do it and couldn't catch any hope. Now Wu Menfei suddenly mentioned it, and Wang Xiaoming slapped his head. Yes, the city wall suddenly appeared, and he couldn't watch it continuously. In the end, this kind of supernatural phenomenon can only be explained by that type of person. Thinking of this, Wang Xiaoming became even more excited. If so, even better. I was worried that I couldn't find it, but now that there are people who seem to exist, I must give it a try. Regardless of whether I can become that type of person, I have to give it a try. At worst, I will join the other party's force and slowly try to figure it out. Crazy. Wu Menfei thinks Wang Xiaoming is really crazy. She would have stopped saying what she just said. With Wang Xiaoming's character, once a decision is made, even 8 horses can't pull it back. Ignition. We're going over there. Wang Xiaoming excitedly took out the igniter. As soon as the igniter was placed next to the burner, the fire suddenly went out. Wang Xiaoming was stunned for a moment, didn't care, started the ignition again, and then it went out again. What's the situation? No matter what, you probably won't be able to go. The sudden sound made everyone present stop and look forward. Although they missed it in the morning, Mu Yuking still came. The Zhongyuan Villa area is not too far away. No matter how many zombies are on the street, he couldn't help but hundreds of wolf-like female warriors to clean up, especially Mu Yuking's demonic fire clearing the way, which was even more unstoppable. As a native of the Demon City in Zhongyuan Villa district, Mu Yuking had long admired his name, but at this level the villa area is not something she can live in. With a house price of more than 100,000 yuan per square meter, she can't even afford a toilet. With the female warriors cleaning up all the way in, Mu Yuking unexpectedly discovered that the entire villa area was very quiet, as if it were a ghost. There is not a single zombie. There is only one possibility for this bizarre situation, that is, there are survivors here, and all the zombies have been cleared away. Realizing this problem, Mu Yuking became much more cautious, and his superpower level reached at LV5. Mu Yuking's perception is very sensitive, especially after these 2 promotions. She gained a pretty good new ability, telepathy, which greatly increased her confidence. Although telepathy is not as terrifying as Lin Fan's magnetism, It can block a bullet or something is still easy, not to mention that everything her demon fire can reach is ignited. This is the powerful effect of specialization enhancement. And the power of telekinesis is also LV5 in terms of strength. This is the demon cat's ability. The horror. The levels of awakened abilities are shared. This is the horror derived from the power of mythical creatures. The only thing that makes Muyuking feel uncomfortable is that after choosing the power of telekinesis, it seems that the promotion experience has also increased a lot. Interception? Although there is no definite number for this, she just feels like this. Maybe this is the price. Possessing the two powers of level 5 demon fire and telekinesis, Muyuking is full of confidence. After sensing the breath of a living person, he quickly rushed over with Jasmine and others. Before they arrived, Muyuking heard Wang Xiaoming's wishful thinking from a few dozen meters away. Don't even think about it, let alone whether you can make it through alive. Even if you make it through alive, the Lord will only kill you. Instead of being an eyesore to the Lord, it would be better for you to die here.